What's up, everybody? Welcome back to I Came with Fire podcast. Tonight we are joined by George Kemper and again by Chris, who will be here for the next couple of weeks. Shout out.
Hey.
Appreciate you, Chris, for doing this
Happy
and
to be here.
co-chairing. Yeah, man. George, I'll let you introduce yourself. We were just talking about weird paranormal stuff, and I want to jump back into that, but I'm going to let George introduce himself real quick, and we'll just go right in.
Yeah, as you said, my name's George Kemper. I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, it's a love-hate. We can get into that a little bit later. I grew up in Chicago, served in the Army, spent some time in Syria during that, got out of the Army, moved back to Chicago, ran for office, state office, and now I'm back in school with the end goal of going to law school, becoming a lawyer, getting involved politically in that regard. So
super cool.
Been bouncing around, have had some odd jobs here and there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, George, I gotta say, it is super nice to meet you. This is the first time that I've had an in-person conversation with an actual by God politician.
Well, I wouldn't say I was that. I didn't win, so I don't get that title.
You ran.
Try.
You ran. And hey, congratulations, because running's half the battle. I think a lot of people are too scared to even throw their hat in the arena. So hats off to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know, Chris is in the Army, so you guys have that in common. I'm the only airman in the room, which is cool. I'm proud of that.
Somebody had to bring the IQ level up.
Dude, I'm just out here for you guys, truthfully. Yeah. So, but dude, yeah. So we were talking about Huska Castle, which is honestly one of my favorite weird things. But Chris, you were talking about the Eternal, and I have some thoughts on that too. But can you recap real quick, because I want to run down that.
Absolutely. So, hey guys, I came with Fire Nation again, standing in for Zach this week. Chris, I'm a Green Beret medic, a husband and a father. I run the Common Freaking Sense channel, which you can find all over social media. Do the bulk of our work over on Instagram. We exist to help you guys cut through the propaganda so you can enjoy thinking for yourself again. That's my little spiel. I'm off of it. Yeah. So what I was saying earlier is that as a Christian man, you look at the way that God made us. It says in Genesis chapter 1, let us make man in our own image, in the image of God. They created him, which is very interesting, bouncing in another third person. But what I was focusing in on is the fact that God made us in his own image, mind, body, and spirit. So there's a part of us that's a physical component, a part of us that is the mind, our intellect, and then a part of us that is eternal, like God is, and that is the spirit. And so I was kind of riffing on that a little bit. And the question that I had asked you earlier was why is it that mankind desires to do things that outlast us? Why would a pharaoh of Egypt build these massive structures, the pyramids, that still stand 3,000 years, after his death, the founding fathers enshrining documents that still exist today? It's because mankind desires to do things that echo into eternity, that change the course of events, because we desire to be like God and to do things that are eternal, like God did for us. That's what I had been saying. So thanks for letting me sound smart for just a second.
Hey man, you don't need any help with that, for real. I want to hear George's thoughts on this, and then I'll kind of expand on what I was thinking when you were talking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that I agree 100% in that. I think that one of the biggest drives of any people is to be remembered, and to do deeds that keep you remembered. But when we were talking a little bit about how are you remembered, and then when you that kind of goes into these legends, as a sense, there's a really great quote from J.R. Tolkien, and it's in Lord of the Rings. And it's history became myth and myth became legend. And it's when they're talking about the story of after the ring, they thought they defeated Sauron.
2,500 years, the ring passed from all knowledge.
Exactly. And I love that quote when you apply it to history. I'm a history buff.
And I love that. Friends.
Yeah. And I love that quote, though, because I'm like, how much is, at a certain point, there's got to be stuff that actually happened that people, whether it's oral tradition or written tradition, it gets lost in the translation. some things just kind of get lost, and it's like, oh well, no, that didn't really happen. That couldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that kind of take when you look at history. You're like, all right, maybe we gotta give a little faith to some of the stories that seem a little far, outlandish and a little far out there.
Yeah, and
I
then
love
when you
that.
layer on top of that history is always written by the victor,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the person that's able and powerful enough to keep the scrolls or the texts or whatever it is, you realize that you're only ever seeing history through a lens.
Yeah.
You
Good
know?
point. And I'm glad you guys both brought this up. So George, you talking about like oral tradition, and then Chris talking about writing things down and the victors, right? So segues into what I was thinking about what you said, Chris, in that oral tradition is something that a lot of like native communities here in the United States, they still attribute to a completely valid way of storing knowledge and then passing that information down. And that's an old way of doing things, even before writing was a thing. And there's the argument that writing itself actually created a lot of the loss in human history, because there was not the need anymore for that oral tradition and to remember these things, because somebody would write them down. And that potentially by writing them down, you sort of casting it into the back of your mind, and then over time writing gets destroyed, it gets lost or whatever, and so those traditions and those that knowledge itself gets lost as well, right? So one of the things that doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion, is that oral tradition, like you brought up, and it segues into what you were talking about, Chris, and the eternal, right? So the downloading of knowledge, and there are people who use something called the muse, right? So artists, right? Jimi Hendrix, for example, talked about the electric church is where he got the inspiration for music. I mean, these are people that they're geniuses, right, in their craft, and that
Or high
information
on
isn't
LSD.
high on LSD. But is that really something to say that might just be a conduit to make it easier for
Yeah.
to
Just
tap into
making
that?
jokes.
Oh
Just
yeah,
making
no, I'm
jokes.
just saying, but it's real. It's true. I
Yeah,
think that
for sure.
that has a lot to do with it, right? And so that oral tradition itself is the passing on of knowledge, much in the same way that if you're tapping into the muse, so to speak, you're not getting something that's written down, you're tapping into that downloading of knowledge. So, and that knowledge, as you're talking about, that eternalness that you brought up, Chris, it makes me think about like our soul, and then the overall like consciousness of human beings. So like consciousness doesn't just exist in your brain the same way that love doesn't just exist in your heart physically. These are things that exist outside of us, and the concept of time that we as humans put on ourselves, and that lens that you were talking about, why we want to live beyond, and we do things beyond what um, our human lifetime tells us we can live, is because we are actually eternal. Whether you choose to look at that through like a Christian sense or religious sense, or perhaps a more like mystical, esoteric type way, you know, I think everybody's subconsciously doing things to remain around forever, because we really are as energy. Energy cannot be created nor killed, right? Destroyed nor destroyed. And so that love, that eternal knowledge, the consciousness we all share essentially is not just something bound by time and space. It's something that can be tapped into all the time. And I think too, going back to the oral tradition piece, is why oral tradition has been so successful, and potentially why I think it lends credence to the argument that perhaps writing in itself has been a culprit in the loss of human history, because it removes yourself and your brain from using that ability.
You
I
bring up a
do.
really.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
George. No, go
Well, I
ahead,
was going to
George.
say one little thing with the oral, the one gripe I would have with oral tradition,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I think that like each oral and written have their own issues with it. But
Yeah,
I'd say the one gripe with oral tradition is how humans tell stories and remember events.
definitely.
Because all three of us could see the exact same thing happen.
Yeah.
And a
Yep.
week later, we're asked how it happened. We're all going to have three different stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like the game when you're a kid playing telephone.
Yeah.
It goes down the
Well,
line. And so I feel like I think the key is when you got to look at both sides of it, compare written with the oral, and then you
mm-hmm.
go from there. It's like at the end of the
Yeah,
day, all history you've got to take with a grain of salt, because like you said earlier,
100%.
history is written by the victor. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I let you go first, because layering both of those two things together, I was going to make the point. This is why I think we've entered the age of the podcast, and the podcast is
Mm-hmm.
so powerful, because you're layering those two things together. You have the oral tradition where, I mean, think about like Dan Bongino, right? Is a guy that I enjoy listening to for his political take on things. That guy was a blue collar NYPD officer, Secret Service guy. Had no business really writing books, even though everybody pushes, once he got famous, they pushed him to write a book. Has no business, you know, like passing on his perspective of the world to other people. Super blue collar guy gets on a podcast and all of a sudden realizes that hundreds of thousands of people actually enjoy listening to his perspective and care what he has to say. Podcasts have given the average Joe or Aaron, sorry, like us, the ability to pass on, you know, for me, 33 years worth of experience that I've had. I have no business writing a book, and if I did, I do journal for my kids. That stuff is never going to be passed outside of our family, obviously, but then, like you were talking about, the fact that if I pass it to you, it's the burden is on you to remember. You put these things in digital form on a podcast, and now it is cemented. You can go back and reference it, you know. And so it's like I think that's one of the reasons that, and of course you get it's things are always, you know, a little bit left, a little bit right, but I just think that's why podcasts are so powerful today, and why so many people resonate with them. You know. Interesting stuff.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's kind of like what I think with your point with Dan Bongino, it's a good point, because you look at history, there's a lot of people who were really good speakers, and they attracted crowds. But nowadays, you know, at a certain point, those speakers, there was only as much as they could travel, as where they could get to get the crowds. Nowadays, you don't have to have someone who's a literary genius. As long as they can, you know, put a podcast together and get it out there, send as many emails as they want to get some attention, eventually they'll pick up steam. And it's like, oh shit, this guy's got a good message that we should listen to.
Yeah. And AI does like 85% of the work for you.
Yeah.
Can. Definitely.
Yeah, it's wild. Weird times, man.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I mean, as far as we know, there's never been a time in history where everybody has access to everybody else the way that we do now, you know? Yeah. And you can even argue too, like, while this is an absolutely astonishing thing that we're sitting here, none of us are in the same location. We're having this conversation. We can see each other's faces, hear one another, you know, whether that is a totally good thing or sort of a bad thing, where there's noise and everybody has the opportunity to voice that opinion. And it creates sort of this pool of information that you have to sift through, and it becomes really, really difficult to begin to understand certain things. So you're that whole quote about swimming in a sea of information but never really understanding anything.
Excellent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No,
really. I always wondered when I was a kid and I was reading the book of Revelation, when it talks about the two prophets that come back and they're killed in the streets of Israel, and it says the entire world will know and will celebrate their death.
Right.
I always wondered as a kid, like, how that was going to be. And now you'll see some kid take a TikTok in downtown New York City and it just goes viral instantly, and like 10,000 streamers becomes like 100 million views in the span of 3 minutes, and the entire world knows about it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the Bible was so prescient, and yet it's like, you know, John was writing that stuff exiled in a cave in Patmos. Maybe high on LSD, we don't know. I can't say.
Well, you did. There's a whole argument to be made for, you know, hallucinogenic things and religion. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys ever looked into Brian Murascu's work, but essentially there's a lot of these ancient like amphorae, right? If you guys are familiar with like the porcelain vases, or I don't think they're porcelain, but like the vases you store like wine in. But they've done studies on these to like get to understand what the properties of what they were containing, and a lot of them that were used for wine, and you're sitting here thinking like, well, it's grapes and yeast and all this stuff. They actually find a lot of these really, really strange things that you wouldn't think that you would put in wine. They have hallucinogenic properties and even THC as well. And so, and these are things that these people are doing essentially to get into this religious headspace. So honestly, man, I think man has been using hallucinogenic things forever to figure out God. It's like the whole like stoned ape theory as well, if you guys are familiar with that. You
I
guys
was
heard the
familiar
snow
with
ape theory?
A little bit.
the fermented grape ape theory, like how they all of a sudden one day picked up like some fruits that had been fermenting, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this makes us feel funny. This is cool."
Dude, I
And
think
thus
everything
was
like that
born
was
the
figured out in
agrarian
accident.
society.
Exactly. Dude, yeah,
I actually,
I think
if you guys haven't seen it, there's a History Channel documentary, and I don't like to support the History Channel because it's like it's really crappy reality TV for the most part,
it
not
is
like
now.
when we were
Yeah.
kids. But they did this documentary called "How Beer Saved the World." It's kind of worth a view, and it goes over that whole thing you were just talking about. It's pretty funny.
As I say, we got to bring back a History Channel that had like future weapons on it and stuff like that. I remember,
right?
Dude.
like, bring back like early 2000s History Channel.
You and I wouldn't have a chance though, dude. It'd be filled with Navy SEALs. Like we wouldn't need them.
It's true. They're the only ones that anybody pays any attention to when they come out. Every Navy SEAL has got a book. It's probably a part of your contract. It's right at the bottom before you sign. It's like you will at the end of your terms of service.
Well, no, it's actually
a book.
It's actually 3 boxes. It was like, do you want to be a high-paid military contractor? Do you want to start a T-shirt company? Do you want to be a social media influencer, or do you want to write a book? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I heard a couple of them found they had a box and they said you have to really, really like 5'11" gear and wear it all the time. So, yeah.
Oh!
Yeah. So it's one of those things, you sell your soul a little bit. Exactly. Oh, are you a 5'11" guy all the time then, Chris?
Me?
Yeah.
No, but I have been known to raid the BX and buy 5'11" for my family members because it's so cheap now.
Dude, that's the BX is king at selling dorky stuff like that. That's for sure.
Did you know that? I didn't know this. It threw me off guard. I was driving around outside, like maybe an hour out of the city of Chicago the other day. Did you know 511 has like actual like brick and mortar stores?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I did not. I thought they were like exclusively in the PX.
That's what I always thought. I was like, I thought there was exclusive like PX and their website. Yeah. And I was driving by and I saw like a 511 store in like a suburb of like just outside of Chicago, and I was like, "What is that?"
What a great place to sell your equipment outside of pretty much a fucking danger zone,
I was just gonna say that if you
gotta drive out of the city to get my tack gear, I gotta gotta kit up again. And last time, got in a battle with some Crips and Bloods and got my shit shot up. I gotta go back out of town to buy some stuff.
Chicago's being outside of the wire, and then the suburbs are inside the wire.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 511. It's a totally strategic economic move by 511. We're just gonna set up around L.A., Chicago, New York City, St. Louis. Dude, St. Louis is dangerous as hell too. I used to live in St. Louis. I don't know if you guys know, but St. Louis is scary as fuck sometimes.
Oh yeah, St. Louis is actually like one of the old school like dangerous cities. We have
it's the murder capital of the U.S.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's always been up there. I don't know how familiar you guys are with like the 18 Delta like training program, but we have agreements with like certain jurisdictions where we let medics go there to train, and you have to like there's a whole like posse comitatus and everything, so it's like we are only allowed to do medicine or whatever. But anyway, St. Louis was one of the old city. We don't do it anymore, but when it first started, they went to downtown New York City, to the Bronx, and then they went to St. Louis was the other city that they used to send guys to like way back in the day. I don't know if they do it anymore. They
still do it actually in Chicago.
Yeah, we got boys that go to Chicago.
Yeah,
I went your boy here went to Flint, Michigan, so
Chirac. Yeah. For real though, dude. So like, I mean, sure, George probably knows, but St. Louis is one of those cities like Kansas City where it's on 2 different sides of a river in 2 different states, right? So East St. Louis is actually in Illinois, and that is like the super dangerous half of St. Louis. I don't know if have you ever been to East St. Louis, George?
I've driven through it. I got a buddy of mine who lives in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I've driven around or by the area, but not in. I don't spend time there.
Yeah, it's like that scene where he's like, roll them up, and that's exactly what it is. You don't, dude. If
actually,
it's after dark, get the
I was
fuck
thinking
out of
about
there.
that. I was thinking about that scene in Black Hawk Down where they're trying to get out of Mogadishu, and they're just.
That's pretty much it, man. Absolutely. So, George, I would like for you to jump in on the situation that happened with you right around everybody's favorite time, where everybody was on lockdown. And yes, dark times, the modern dark ages. But when everything changed, would like you to just jump in. What was the situation that happened? That had you on the news, and what was going on?
Yeah, that was one of those funny things that just all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, this is happening. Cool." Didn't want this to happen, but okay, here we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I reached out. I got out of the Army in spring of 2020. Moved back
Congratulations.
to Chicago, and was starting back to go to school. And during that time, I was like, "Oh, want to get a part-time job." So I reached out to my old high school, and I played baseball there. And I reached out to them and was like, "Hey, you guys have any like part-time coaching jobs? Assistant coach, or something to like, you know." Uh, I was like, "I'd love to just get involved and kind of
Mm-hmm.
get back into it." And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." I had a couple of guys who I still knew who were working at the school. They helped out, and they're like, "Yeah, of course." So I went through the process, and they were like, "Yep, you're good to go." And then after they said like, "Yeah, it's good to go," Christmas was coming up. They're like, "We'll get back to you after the New Year." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And then like right around that time when I was expecting to hear back from them, I hadn't heard anything for
Mm-hmm.
about a week or so after, and I was like, "I'm gonna reach out." So I reached out, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll call you in like a day or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And they called me, and they're like, "We were revoking the job offer because of stuff we found on social media, what you've been saying." And my initial
Okay.
reaction was like, "Okay, I don't think I said anything that bad. I mean, like, yeah, it's every now and then you'll say a spicy take, but nothing like
Mm-hmm.
terrible." Um, and then also the thing that threw me off, and this still rubs me the wrong way, is that my Facebook was fully private. So
Okay.
the only way that they saw something was that
Was
if I'm
a friend.
assuming a friend
Mm.
who, you know, they
Right.
got it from
Who
someone
had
else. So
access to your
that was,
stuff? Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that rubbed me the wrong way. But long story short, they revoked the job offer. I reached out trying to deal with it internally, not make a scene. Sent a letter to like the school, kind of saying, "Hey, I don't think you guys handled this right way. I'd like to explain myself. Can we start a dialogue?" They
Mm-hmm.
ignored it all. And so then after that, I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to put it out there." And then it all blew up. So that was
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Yeah, some radio stations, some news channels, and it was interesting to see how it picked up.
So
Uh,
how did
and I,
it blow up? Was it because you reached out to places like the news or whatever
no,
about
so
it, or did this? Well, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I didn't reach out to anyone.
Okay.
I published an article about what happened,
Okay.
um,
On like a
and then
Substack or
yeah, it was on a website called Red State.
okay.
So I got it published through them, and it was just my story about the situation. And then
Right.
from there, it kind of was a snowball effect.
Okay.
Um, and I am glad I did it because it was interesting is that I found out that there were other issues at the school that were going on and no
Mm.
one had spoken out yet.
Like
And
what?
so there were certain things where, the curriculum, parents weren't happy with the curriculum. It was kind of a lot of like the critical race theory stuff,
Okay.
which was hot at that time too.
Yeah.
And so because I spoke up and said something, then some parents started speaking up more and more. And it
Mm-hmm.
even got to the fact where the school lost some pretty significant donors because of all of this stuff. Which on
Poor
one hand, I'm
him.
like, yeah, and on one hand, I'm like, I wish that it didn't happen at all. But on
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, I was like, well, if I had to be the one to start it, at least in hindsight, in like, I'm kind of like, I hope that something good happened from it. I hope either the school is kind of like, oh, hey, well, maybe we should fix X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least people kind of woke up and were like, oh, maybe we should say something, start speaking out a little bit more.
I love when organizations like that just completely screw themselves over. They start something, they do something like what you're talking about, which is pretty scary. It kind of goes right back into what we were talking about before about how everything online exists forever, right? But somebody took the time, and then a friend seems like as well, to go into your Facebook, your social media presence, and find something and use it against you to revoke your employment.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
I
yeah,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, and the one last thing I'll just add to the bit was what was interesting was their complaints about like my stances. My stances were against all the COVID mandates. I wasn't ever saying like I wouldn't follow the rules if I took the job or anything like that. It was more just like, I don't think this is good. Like this is a slippery slope. And then so their complaint was that it was like kind of too political. And then ironically, they had Black Lives Matter banners being flown in the school, and their own social media accounts were posting other political takes. So I saw that and I was like, it just wasn't the right one. Yeah. I was like, it's not a political thing. I just didn't have the right opinion.
Right. It wasn't orthodox.
Go figures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly it, man. Is you're creating a footprint online. We all are, right? Somebody could very easily go and find and I'll say this too. I have had in my job hunt recently, getting out of the Air Force, I've had people bring up like, oh, hey, I saw that you have a podcast. And I was like, yeah, I do. I completely know that this opens me up for a lot of my thoughts and ideas. No one has ever said anything to me about it other than like, that's great. You understand social media, you understand all this, so it's been a positive to my knowledge. But it would be very easy for some of the things that I talk about to be used against me, right? Especially where I live outside the United States in California, right? So, but no, for you though, like the thoughts and opinions on what was going on, and then kind of the misfortune of your location working against you is pretty wild. It just the fact that that's being taken into account. Like, what were they worried about? Like, you were going to go, baseball practice, pull all the kids aside, and be like, okay, boys, here's what's going to happen, right? Is that what they were worried about, or what?
Which ones of you aren't circumcised? Who's not baptized?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And that was the thing that when I tried to reach out was kind of like, I mean, I told this was one of my friends who was at the school. After it happened, I reached out to him. I was like, I mean, I was just looking for a job to coach baseball part-time. Like, it's not like I was looking for a soapbox to try to preach to kids. I was like, I just wanted to teach them how to, maybe have a better swing or,
Sure. Get the fuck out of here.
Better, like,
you're not gonna compromise the youth of the school. Get out of here.
That brings up such a good point though, because it's like, if you really look at what has happened, through the past, I'm going to say probably like 5 years, because there was kind of a ramp up heading into it that I think a lot of us didn't either see coming or didn't anticipate. I think that's fair to say.
Definitely.
And then it was like a lot of us like hit that wall at like 60 miles an hour, and we're just like, what in the world is going on? But it's like, if you look through the institutions, there's been a buildup for a long time of the quote unquote orthodoxy, like what's good and what's not okay. But there wasn't like a weapon strong enough in order to enforce it until COVID. And then COVID seemed to be the animus that was needed to then start
100%.
enforcing the orthodoxy that we all kind of, because there was like things that was just like, like, yeah, I got it, man. I'm a good Christian man. I'm not going to drop the hard R. That you shouldn't say that in polite society. And if you do, like, people aren't going to talk to you. I can understand that. We can all kind of live by those like certain societal rules. But then it was, again, me as a Christian man, there was the idea of all of a sudden, when I say, hey, I have like religious objections to doing a thing because of maybe the way that your medicine is produced, or I have religious objections to my place of worship being closed down while mosques were still allowed to operate.
Were you digging tunnels?
I'm sure.
Just wondering.
I'm sure. I don't know. Well, I mean, should I start? Like that's the thing. It's like I'm sure starting to feel targeted against is the thing that happened, is what I'll say. And that's a really interesting point that you brought up, to where it's like, dude, I just want to coach baseball. I was just here to do like a normal thing.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden you're starting to use my views against me, my political views over here. What do those have to do with baseball? But everything became politics.
Yeah, I mean,
everything became fair play.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, you think about it, like, to your point, like, it used to be you could disagree with people about politics. And it's like, you just don't talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. And
there are two rules at the bar, dude. You don't talk politics at the bar. You don't talk religion at the bar. And we all drink together, right?
Yeah, we all drink. I'll play a game of pool with you and we'll all be happy. And like, you'd have friendships and you'd be like, oh yeah, I think so-and-so is more left, or I think so-and-so is more right. But it doesn't come up, and they're a good guy, and I like hanging out with them. And
Mhm.
nowadays, it's like, oh, they don't line up with me. I can't associate with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like that's so detrimental to society these days.
Well,
Like,
we
there's
have
no civility.
no, and we have lived now through a period of time where we've all asked the question before is like, I know I did in high school, really learning about, and everybody brings it back to Nazi Germany, right? But it's a real question. How did they get to that point? And how do you get to the point where you're othering people so easily? And now we have lived through this period of time where it is so easy to understand how people do that. It doesn't require a lot at all. All of a sudden, you're applying, you get out of the army, right? You're trying to find a job coaching baseball. And then that's enough, what you said about something, to other you and put you in this out group essentially to where you can't even coach a baseball team, a high school baseball team.
And so to build on that, I'm going to point out, I don't think you would have got the job either, because
Probably not.
because
Probably
I
not,
said
bro.
one of the things I posted was almost exactly that. I remember one of the posts, this is all I said, no pictures, no nothing. I just said, I bet there were a lot of Jews in Germany who got called conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
And they didn't like, and they specifically on the phone said that they didn't like that one. And I was like, I wasn't demeaning to any race or religion. That's a historical, like, opinion. Yeah. It's kind of just like pointing something out. Like, I bet there were.
There absolutely were.
Like, yeah. And to your point, like, it's crazy.
Well, dude, like, let's point this out real quick, right? So, are you guys familiar with the term pogrom by any means?
Of course. Pilgrim?
Yeah. No. Pogrom or pogrom. So it's how you say it, right? No? Okay. So a pogrom essentially is an act where a group of people go out for the specific reason of harming Jews. Okay. And it could be, so like Kristallnacht would be an example of that. But a lot of pogroms were done in Russia during the period of time between like World War I and World War II, even prior to World War I. Okay. So, this idea of conspiracy theories and Jews, right? You live through all these different things, the people that were being thrown in concentration camps. There's probably a good portion of them that lived through these pogroms, right? And so what do you do when something weird happens, right? This is the frog in the boiling pot of water thing. You either react or you don't. And you think, okay, well, this happened, and maybe 5 blocks from where we lived, there was a bunch of Jewish businesses got raided really, really early in the night and destroyed. Well, it can't happen to me, right? And it's not going to happen. And then you get excited about it, and your nervous system goes up, and then it starts to calm down when it goes away. And you do that over and over and over again until you're in that state where now you're wearing an armband. And well, now we're going to move you into these ghettos that we built. And you see where I'm going with this? And it's just like that conspiracy. I bet there were Jewish conspiracy theorists. It's exactly that point of, you have to do something. Go ahead, Chris.
I gotta add this on top of what you're saying, because this is what you made me think of when you asked the question, how did we get here? And that was such a great example that you just gave. So Friedrich Gustav Emil Martin, I'm gonna butcher the last name, Niemöller. He was a Protestant pastor and a social activist in the 1940s. But anyway, in his memoir that he wrote, he has a famous quote. He says, "And then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist.
I love this quote.
And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and by that time, there was no one left to speak up."
Exactly.
And like, that's what happens. And that's why the division is so strong, because if you can peel off minority groups of societies, like they already feel like they've got Christian white dudes in a corner. I'm just going to say it. Like they've already,
you shop at Home Depot, you're on a list. Dude, that's a fact.
No, like,
that's a fact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Right. And so it's like, if you can start peeling people off in small enough groups, right, which is like the frog in the pot, like what you were talking about, you do it up just a little bit at a time. Everybody is usually fine to keep their head down, so long as you don't come for me. And then by the time you're the last guy left in the corner of the room, well, guess what? Like all your would-be allies are gone, and that's one of the things that I feel like we're doing here in communities like this, by bringing people together, by putting it online, by blasting it out there, is like letting people know. I think like the strongest thing that we can do is let people know that you're not alone. First of all, you're not crazy. Second of all, and then also like there are strength in numbers there, and like when you start combining people together and building those networks. Now I'm a purveyor of unconventional warfare by trade, so it's like I may have a little more training in this than other people, but I think people are catching on just by virtue of like understanding the informational war. People are starting to like contextually understand it, even if they can't vocalize what they're doing.
Podcast positive column for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in social media too. There's a lot of Instagram pages that have been popping off where it's just like, hey, for your knowledge, here's how to make, like a road trap. Here's for your knowledge, how to make a blind.
And just to let people know like how the Instagram pages work. Like if you follow one page, I guarantee you if you type in that page _1, type in that page _2, type in that page _3, they've got backups to backups to backups that they just keep changing the names of.
Yeah.
Just letting you guys know that's how that stuff works, because
Meta,
like
Mark
they
Zuckerberg
will not
bunch of
shut
losers.
us down, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, like I was gonna say Reaper is like a great one that I've stumbled upon in the beginning, and they've got some some of them have book recommendations. And like there's so much knowledge out there. I think with the internet, like what we were talking about is how podcasts have really pushed messaging. Like there's so much information out there, and like I still like reading books. I hate reading articles. And so like for me though is I didn't know how many interesting books are out there. Whether it's, like I mean, I think I used to think I did. Like I read a lot, but like all of a sudden I'll stumble upon a book. I'm like, I didn't know there's a book for that. Like
I'm not laughing at you. I've had the same realization. And that's why it's funny, but it's like it's the year 2024. Somebody wrote a book about that? Yeah, back in like 1857.
Yeah, like 200. Yeah.
For real though.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course they did. And then I'll look it up and I'm like, oh, Amazon, sweet. $5-10 on Amazon. Great.
Thrift Books. Thriftbooks.com.
Yeah.
Greatest website. I love Thrift Books.
Yeah. And what are those old websites that we used to surf in college to get our textbooks on? Is it Thrift Books was one, and then there was another one where you could sell your old college textbooks? I'll have to go look it up.
I use JSTOR a lot.
There's a lot of those guys that you can go out there and just like catch people selling their old college textbooks and soak up a lot of knowledge for like, $5 a book. It's
or you try to go sell back your old college books to the school and you paid $80 for them and they'll offer you $1.72. It's like, fuck you, bro. Dude, no. So you actually made me think of something really, really interesting.
$300 book and
dude,
you get $2.
That happened to me, dude. Like your books cost you like $3,500 and you go to sell it back at the end of the year, you make $7 and you can buy a quesadilla at the school cafeteria. It's like, I just fuck myself, dude.
It was the book that the professor of that class wrote.
We didn't even read it. Yeah. This is a book on modern architecture. I didn't even fucking open it.
Yeah.
Why do I literally have kept college books because I was like, hell no, give me that back.
At
$2. That was a $700 book. Hell no. I'll put this on my coffee table one day when I'm rich. Fuck you.
Straight up, dude. That's hilarious.
Made me think of something. You talk about books and going back to Nazi Germany, but book burning, right? Burning knowledge, getting rid of it, banning books, all this stuff. Let's dive into. Do you think there's any sort of correlation or equivalency, I should say, in burning books and then shutting people down, like their podcasts and pages down on social media for being dangerous?
Who are you asking?
You guys. Do you think that's kind of the same?
Can I jump in first?
Wherever.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I think burning a book is so much worse.
Okay.
Because you are erasing that knowledge from all of history if you get rid of it. So it's like I do like. There's an argument between the left and the right now about the whole book burning thing. And it's like, conservatives want to burn books and they want to keep books out of libraries. It's like, no, we want to keep pornography out of elementary schools. It's a totally different thing. And I come in kind of, for most of human history, I come in kind of from a slanted spot on the right where I go, no, don't. Like as Christians, I was against the whole Harry Potter book burnings back in the 90s, right? When Christians were like, oh, burn them things. My mom was all on board with that. I was like, I don't think that you should. I
read them at a friend's house because my mom wouldn't let them be there.
See? We all
sneaking into Borders right before closing, just in the back.
Yeah. But I come at it from a slightly different angle, and that is like, don't burn it. If you think that it's truly evil, you need to hold on to it and preserve it as a testament to why this is so bad. Because if you preserve it and you show people, now that's a lot different from publishing it and putting it in an elementary school, but it should be preserved because there needs to be like stakes in the ground so you can look back and see where you did right and where you went wrong. And so for all of that, I think book burning as a practice is abhorrent. I think it's evil. I think it destroys human history, and it perpetuates like a nothingness, but the eternal present. You only ever live in the present. You're destroying history. It's the same thing I would say, like, you shouldn't get rid of statues. There's a reason somebody put that thing there, right? Whether for good or evil, there was a reason somebody erected that statue, thought it should be a thing that mankind should spend tens of thousands of hours sculpting, right? Whether for good or evil, versus taking somebody off of social media, like, yeah, it's bad. You spent all of your free time doing it, but I think we all understand the game kind of at this point, and that is like, if you're not backing all your stuff up before you go online, having backup pages, and yeah, they can deplatform you, but at the same time, bro, like, you did sign the user agreement, before you started the thing. So those are kind of my reasons. I think book burning is so much worse.
I agree that it's worse. It's just like the concept of eradicating info that you don't like. You know what I mean? Is it
It's bad
almost
all
a
around.
modern version of that in a way?
I don't see the two as the same though. And I think the reason why is like, I don't take this the wrong way. I think that as guys who put out a podcast, I think that it's worse, or I think it's different for burning a book than shutting down someone's social media or podcast. I think it's very different because the amount of work and time and knowledge someone has to have to write a book and then get it published and edited is a lot different than the knowledge, time, and effort to make a podcast. And that's not to say that they're both aren't valuable, because there's really shitty books out there and there's really shitty podcasts. There's also really great books and there's really great podcasts.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that I wouldn't necessarily put them in the same grouping of being canceled or deleted, because the effort to do them and the processes to do them are so different.
Yeah.
The same way as I wouldn't put like going, if you went down to the Times Square and got on a soapbox and started talking and trying to draw a crowd, I would say like it's its own entity in itself.
Yeah. No, I think that
and I guess the last thing is, however, to your point, if a government is doing if it's trying to shut down any of those three or all of them, it's a bad sign.
For sure. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you both. That I think book burning in itself is definitely the more abhorrent act. Again, right? I think we all look at the internet as sort of this anomalous thing that just exists. And you brought up the user agreement, right? You get on a platform like YouTube or Instagram, you have to agree to those. And even if you don't read the terms and conditions, you've agreed to them, right? And so it's not just an open platform, like you can get on a soapbox in the middle of somewhere and say what you want. There's this sort of thought process that the internet is sort of like that, but there are rules. And technically, yes, there's rules in public as well. You can't do certain things, but it's a lot easier to get censored online than it is out in public, right? Without physical force, but the act of collecting all of somebody's work and throwing it into a pile and burning it, maybe it wouldn't have the same effect today because a lot of print exists online anyway, right? But I think that act symbolically is definitely a lot worse. But the idea popped in my head because it is just the killing of ideas. You find an idea or a set of ideals, right, that you don't like, and the effort is to collect all that author's work and throw it on a big conflagration and burn it, or you find it all online and do your best to eradicate it. It's just like the whole killing ideas thing, I think is the point I was trying to get at, is that this is like canceling people online and shutting down certain ideas in a forum where everybody has access to them. is kind of the modern version of, or maybe book burning was the old version of canceling, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. In that regard, I absolutely agree. Because one way or another, you're erasing all of the thoughts, all of the ideas that someone put a lot of time into putting out there and organizing in one way or another. And it to your point, like, it just made me think of how you were saying, it's the modern version of it. How many people do you know who really read books anymore? Like, compared to the 1940s, 30s, though.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That was the medium back
that
then.
was the medium. Nowadays, the medium is audiobooks or podcasts.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. Is that it's just the medium has changed, but it's still the same idea.
Yeah. I think the act of burning books is scarier for sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Have you guys heard of cultural sensitivity author teams?
No, I've heard of cultural sensitivity training.
Right. So the thing that I think is scarier than even book burning, and a lot of people don't know that this is going on, is that there are groups that are buying up the IP of authors that are deceased, and then they're turning them over to cultural sensitivity authors, and they're actually going through and they're rewriting or editing the original text. And one great example of this are the books of Roald.
Don't tell me it happened in 1984. That'd be just too cliche.
No, it started.
It's
so
happening now, actually.
The first time that I heard of it was last year, in early 2023. The works of Roald Dahl, if you guys know of him, James and the Giant Peach is probably the most commonly known. Are being turned over to cultural sensitivity author teams, and they're going through and they're rewriting his original works and re-editing them and then republishing them.
I have seen that,
for modern authors. And I think that is probably the most insidious thing that's actually happening, because you could have two people, hey man, have you read James and the Giant Peach? Oh yeah. And then you start talking about it, but the book that you read and the book that I read are not the same book.
Dude, that is evil, in my opinion. Like, I get you on the rights, but I guarantee you, dude, if you could Encino Man Roald Dahl and bring him back and show him this shit, he'd be fucking pissed. He
would be 100% against it.
Yep. He'd get a BFG, big fucking gun, and point it in your face, and that'd be the end of it. For real.
I mean, the aspect too is, even if you go and you take the approach of they're trying to do the right thing and they're trying to better the author's work.
Well, yeah, but the highway
to hell or the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But like, even that intention is wrong. Like,
it is.
Respect the author. I mean, like, when you look at, you wouldn't go up to the Mona Lisa and take the greatest. You wouldn't take the greatest. But if there was, you wouldn't take the best artist in the world and say, "Hey, we want you to just like touch this up a little bit. It's fading here and there."
Happened last week.
Yeah. No, for real. Hey, listen, we want to see some some rouge on Mona. She's looking a little pale.
Don't update it for the times. Like, hey, respect the work for what it was.
Or hey, man, she looks a little feminine.
True.
She needs a little 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah. I want to know what the cultural sensitivity authors, like in the future, how they would rewrite WAP. I want to know what that, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you touch that up? Or is that in tune enough? It just you can't redefine, wings and pizza, something, what is it? I want to know, for real.
There's a stand-up guy who actually had a great bit. I don't know if you saw it. And it was right when, Baby It's Cold Outside was canceled.
Oh gosh.
That was like two, 3 Christmases ago.
Yeah, and this comedian, he stood up on stage and he had WAP and Baby It's Cold Outside, and he goes, "Guess which one of these songs was canceled?"
Yeah.
Dude,
and he reads them back verse to verse.
Oh man.
And it's hilarious and infuriating at the same time. He goes, "One of these is like on the #1 charts. One of these is canceled."
Okay, that stuff pisses me off so much, because if you ever had
female empowerment, George.
Listen, if you were ever a 15-year-old guy and you actually got out of your mom's basement and had to go to like church youth group or go to high school and actually talk to a girl, the whole like push and pull thing of trying to get a girl to like go on a walk with you in the woods. It's like we've all been there. We've all been there. And like somebody that would cancel Baby It's Cold Outside, like the dude's trying to get her to stay overnight in a cultural, contextual time where she goes, but there's bound to be talk tomorrow if I stay at your house, because then people's going to know what happens, And he's like, oh, but like imagine
it is cold outside.
Imagine my lifelong sorrow.
It's pretty respectful sounding.
And,
you know what I mean?
And then it's like, he pours her a drink and they have another cigarette and they're doing this whole thing. And it's a beautiful flirt, like back and forth.
It is.
And
it is a flirt.
And when it was written, here's the thing that they don't understand about it. It's canceled because they say like it's misogynistic. Who has all the power in that song?
Her.
The girl.
She's on her way to the car, and he's
trying to convince her to stay.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. Is he's like, oh, like come on, baby, stay, and she's like, no, I gotta go, and and it's like when the song ends, it's like, did she stay or did she go? You don't know because it ends on Baby It's Cold Outside. She has all the power in that song. It's classy. It's it reminds me of those memes where they show like pictures from the 1930s and then pictures from now, and you see like dudes like wearing pants around their ankles, and then back in the 1930s, dudes are walking around in 3-piece button-down suits and all the girls are in dresses, and they're like, here's how people used to dress to go to a baseball game.
Right.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
That George couldn't coach at.
Here's how people dress to go to church now. It's like, and what changed? You look at the art changed. You look at the politics have changed. Here's a question that I have for you, Brandon. Which one was the impetus for it? Does the art follow the culture, or did the culture follow the art? Like which one spearheaded, do you think, to get us
did
here?
Art imitate life, or did life imitate art? Is that what you're asking?
Right. The chicken and the egg,
Chicken and the egg.
I have
question.
a strong opinion on this one.
Okay.
Ooh, all right.
Well, I'll exercise my host privilege, and I'll let George go first. But I just I just want to point out that I'm really proud of you, George, for throwing in a Zen and giving the middle finger to Chuck Schumer. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Chuck. Here in Zimbabwe.
fuck you, Chuck. Yeah. Exactly. So
we're for Zindependence here.
Zindependence. Yes. I like that one.
That's a good one. I don't have a clever one. I'm sorry. I let you guys down. No. Oh, man. Okay. Does life imitate art? Does art imitate life? And what got us to this point? I would definitely say that let's look at the 60s, right? Okay. Let's consider here for a second. I think that the art of the time, right? So music in the 60s is extremely quintessential. And it is 100%. You look at the 1960s and 70s even, right, with disco. And then you start marching into the 80s and look at how different music got, okay? I think that this is a life imitating, an art imitating life sort of thing. I would say that. And the reason I say that too is I'm going to go back to drugs here for a second, okay? And this might be a weird opinion, but I think that there's some water to be held here. The types of drugs people were using in that time were very psychedelic and hallucinogenic, hence the type of music. And there was a large crackdown on those drugs by the government. And then you get to the 1980s and it's all heroin and crack, right? And the music changes and all this stuff, right? So I would say like it's a sign of the times, the music and the art, and that essentially is the order of things, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for. I think that life happened.
Your take on it.
Yeah. No, I think that life was changing. I think that, the 1950s and the World War II is over. The way life was being perceived started to change because the United States started becoming the world power. And I think that's also one of our downfalls, as well as seeing ourselves as the lone power. It's like that line from Dark Knight Rises where Bane tells Batman, he says, "Victory has defeated you." And I think that has a lot to do with it. And so I think that just
I call it the velvet handcuffs.
Velvet handcuffs. Elaborate.
Yeah, because the idea is that the velvet handcuffs is an obvious. It's alluding to, you know, the time with the prostitute. She gives you the velvet handcuffs, and you never you put them on
Never heard that one.
yourself because, well, no, it's a Chris Hambrock special. Like, that's what I
okay.
call it. Is
Okay,
what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And it's where you become a slave to your own pleasures.
Mhm.
And so it's handed to you. Here are the velvet handcuffs. So they're not
Mhm.
slapped on you like the steel ones. You take them and you bind yourself because you
Mhm.
become a slave to your own pleasures. And
Yeah,
that's what I call it.
I
know,
think
and
that you took what I
victory
was
has
trying to get
defeated
at.
you.
Yeah, and kind of turned it into your example of the velvet handcuffs, like building your own cage, so to speak, right?
Right.
So
That's
I
what I'm
think
trying to
that
say.
essentially what I was trying to get at with the entire, you know, victory has defeated you thing, the United States becoming the lone superpower at the top, is exactly why you have the 60s and the 70s. It's sort of there's nothing better to freaking do. So we're going to do a bunch of drugs and we're going to make a bunch of music about it. Life is pretty awesome. And it leaves room for the civil rights movement, right? Because now you have the time and you live in a first world country where you're not being challenged by another nation. You can try going after some of these things that maybe weren't attainable before. You know, you look at the periods of time before that, you have the 1920s leading up to all of this surplus in the United States, and then the stock market crash, and you have FDR pulling the United States out of that, and then you have World War II, right? And so there wasn't really any time in the United States as a country, like even if you take apportion it back even further than that, World War One, the Civil War, and you know, in the Restoration, right? There's no time really to get through all that stuff. So I think really that was the first time the U.S. had an opportunity to kind of sit on its laurels, so to speak. And then you start seeing all this. And I said to you before, Chris, I think, and there's an argument to be made for this, that the more egalitarian a society becomes, the more it starts to erode.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. And to back you up, I think that 2010 was basically like 1960 2.0, because hey, we got bin Laden. The rest of the world forgot about the GWAT. Even though some of us were still fighting it, the rest of the world kind of forgot about it. We rested back on our laurels even harder. And then you had the same thing. It kind of mirrored each other from, you know, 3 generations post, where it's like you got all these kids that are born in the 60s that didn't have to fight during World War II, and they have a group of parents that saw the absolute worst that the world had to offer and said, I don't ever want my kids to go through that, and gave them everything. Well, a kid that doesn't have anything to fight against is going to find a problem. We're human beings. We desire to struggle. Is that there's a weird thing about us.
Well,
we
that's
desire
why we
to
are
struggle.
arguing about bathrooms.
Yeah, that's
No, for
my
real,
whole
though.
point. And so in 2010, you got a group of kids, and so now you have the GWAT vets that are coming back, and we had a little bit of a dip, and we went over. A lot of us did. I enlisted in 11. We went over and we had our thing, and then now our kids, same thing, except the thing is, you can't ever, like, we already did civil rights. We already did civil rights. So now we got to do civil rights 2.0 for what they did in the 60s. You see what I'm saying? And so that's
like
why I think
recreating Spider-Man over and over again.
Right. And that's why I think those things are going like this. I just wanted to back you up.
No,
I do. I
appreciate
agree
it.
with
I like the velvet handcuff analogy. I would argue, though, that we're not repeating. I would argue that 2010 era is not repeating the 60s. I would say that the analogy would be better to would be closer to the guy at the bar who's talking about his high school glory days. Because
let's check tape.
It's kind of like, it's like, we've been there, we did that. Yeah. I'm too old to do it again, but I still love bragging about it. And I get my ass kicked, and I would get it kicked, and I have in some ways, you know. But it's the guy who's been kicked out of the bar a couple of times. He's lost the fight, you know. He likes to back
World War champs, baby.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you hear that? Like, with this plastic patriotism, you see it around. And I would argue that, like, that rise of plastic patriotism is closer to a, like, glory days at the bar mentality than we're taking our own, like, than anything else.
Actually, that's a perfect segue, George. I had one question that I absolutely had to ask you tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a politician, what party did you run for?
I ran. So this is how I said. I ran under the Republican Party.
Okay.
But I am myself.
Okay.
So I ran on the Republican ticket. I have a lot of issues with the Republican Party. I have a lot of issues with the Democrat ticket. In a perfect world, I would have ran independent. But you got to play the hand. You got to play the hand you're dealt.
No, 100%. That's the political system that we're given. So you and I have a lot in common there. So I do have to ask your take on what's going on at the southern border. Based on what you just said, I would really like to know. So just to kind of tee it up a little bit more for anybody that's not paying attention, I don't know what you're doing. Are you hiding under a rock? Governor Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has mobilized the Texas Military Department. A lot of people don't know. Texas has a National Guard, but they also have a Texas Military Department, a private military department, completely. Go and look that up if you don't understand the difference, but they are a unique state in that fact. That he has started enforcing the southern border by putting razor wire in place. The Biden administration ordered them to remove the razor wire. The Abbott administration of Texas basically said,
fuck you.
Read between the lines, and said the Supreme Court ruled on it, said that the federal government has the right and may remove the razor wire, at which point Texas mobilized the National Guard, kicked out the CBP completely, took control of certain areas of the southern border, and said, if you do come in and remove the razor wire, we're just going to put up more. At that point, the Biden administration gave them 48 hours, which elapsed 2 days ago, to remove the wire. Texas also again said, F you, we're not going to do it. And then started flying the Gonzales flag above the Texas National Guard buildings, which is the come and take it flag for you guys that don't know. So that's kind of the situation that we're in. For anybody that doesn't know, that was a very short primer. George, your take as a politician on what's going on there.
So I will preface this. My take as a failed politician, which I wear as a badge of honor in some ways.
A politician of delayed success.
Yes. No. Honestly, I like that. No. So my opening statement with what's going on in Texas is, when did it become so wrong to prioritize your own people? Like, it drives me nuts when we are sending billions of dollars to every other country in the world. We are doing everything we can to help every other country. But yeah.
Israel.
But like
Israel.
We're but then all of a sudden we have our own border and we have so many issues in our own country. And believe, like, I'm all for welcoming people into this country. That's the whole point of America. Like, we are a melting pot. And I do believe that we should take in the best that the world has to offer. Emphasis on the best. Yeah. And like, the fact that we have so many issues at home and it's all of a sudden controversial to say, we're sealing off the border, we can't let you in, it's only going to make things worse. I don't understand how that's a bad thing. So, I mean, if I had a magic wand, I would say lock that shit down immediately. No one's coming through. No compromise on a bill. Not this 5,000 a day. No one's allowed in. We're dealing with what we have. And in a couple of years, in 5-10 years, whatever it takes, once we have gotten everything straightened away, we'll let it open. Maybe we can let more people in illegally or legally.
I would love to expand on your idea there.
So say you were a member of Congress right now and you had an opportunity to speak to Governor Greg Abbott. What would you say to the governor of Texas and the Texas National Guard? What would you say to them?
I would say, how can I convince my governor to send National Guard troops to Texas?
So, great answer. Joe, I want to expand on this too, like this concept, right? So there's this sort of belief that floats around, and it's not even just Americans that hold this belief. You know, I have friends that are European, I have friends that are from Japan, and even talking to some of the Africans in a few of the countries that I've been deployed to before, sort of look at the United States this way, almost that we have a moral obligation to take everybody and anybody who wants to come to this country. And I think that America as a brand around the world has exhibited itself that way, and there is this sort of schoolhouse rock idea of the United States. Okay, I mean, and I think that's a good way to look at it, though, Chris. You know, because it is 100% this.
Bill.
Yeah, but here's the thing, man. This isn't 1902. Okay, we're not coming off the heels of or still in the throes of the Industrial Revolution. Okay, we're not there's not just a bunch of European, Middle Eastern, whatever, people coming here, Chinese, to immigrate to a literally new country, fresh off a civil war and Reformation, and there's the opportunity to build, right? We're not taking away anything from the country. They're literally here to build this country. Okay. I would 100% argue that the people coming across the border, while there are people coming across seeking a better life, there's that mother with her 2 kids, right? Went through the tribulation of maybe hiring a coyote to take her there, and what's going to happen. But these aren't people coming here to build on the United States. They're not people coming here to assimilate. There's even people who are expecting the United States to assimilate to the people coming into our country, and I would argue that's a very backwards business model as well.
Oh, and you see it all the time in Chicago. I mean,
yeah. And
when you see it for Mexican Independence Day, it's one of they shut down the streets.
Yeah, and listen,
it's not an official shutdown. It's just they put their flags on their cars, they drive around.
It should be illegal.
My wife and I have talked about this, where if we moved to, say, Poland, because we felt it was better for our family,
or Hungary,
or like wherever, right? 4th of July rolls around. I'm not going to be driving around in my car flying an American flag. I'm going to barbecue in the backyard and teach my kids about kind of, hey, this is our history, this is our heritage. Well, but like, I'm going to adapt. I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to be proud. Also, my aspect when I look at it is I'm like, you left your country for a reason. You came here. Be proud of being here.
Yeah, well, I said it to a friend of mine the other day. I was like, when you go to a neighbor's house, do you knock on the front door and go in the front door and then, oh, hey, do you mind if I reach in the fridge? Right? Is that not how you treat your neighbor?
Yeah.
Why do you treat your neighbor that way? Or do you go around, hop his fence, pick the back lock, go in and start taking stuff from his fridge? One's a thief. The other one is a guest. Right? Yeah. And so it's like, if you can understand that on a micro level between neighbors, then it's not that hard to understand that if the very first thing that you do, there's a fundamental difference from a person. And let me preface this by saying I completely understand. I've been to third world countries, same as you, Brandon. I've seen the hurt. I've seen the suffering. I've seen the human indecencies that happen. I've been there. I was a civil affairs soldier before I was a special forces soldier. I've dealt with this stuff in humanitarian disasters. I'm very, very familiar with it, more than most. There's a fundamental difference in a person in their very first act in your country, in their mindset, that they're going to sneak in the back gate because they know the give me dats, right, that they're going to get, versus the person that is willing to show up at a port of entry, speak to Border Patrol, understand, or go through, here's my passport. Yes, I desire for a green card. I desire to be a part of the United States. That person will assimilate because they respect you. They respect your culture. What you see at the southern border is not a group of people that respect our culture. And you know what? And Americans out there, what have we done for them to respect? That's the thing I think we need to talk about. What do we actually export around the world right now that people should respect us and come in the front door? Because I think that's probably the biggest problem.
I mean, would you respect
That's not a problem that we can solve here on this level.
That's a fair point for sure. And I would argue too that the process for people to correctly assimilate in the United States and come here naturally and become naturalized citizens is a very convoluted and difficult and expensive process too.
I agree.
Zach, even his wife coming from Japan, it's a crazy process they have to go through.
Yeah. I think we should make that process so much easier and streamlined.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It would change a lot. I agree with both of you on that one.
And going back to what you were talking about before.
Why do we treat people that try to do it the right way like criminals, and then people that sneak through the back gate?
There's no incentive
why do we do
to come through the front. There's no incentive to come through the front door. And for what you're saying, you had said earlier, George, about like reliving the glory days. This isn't the glory days anymore where this is coming to Ellis Island and getting processed and coming through. These aren't the same people. This isn't the same point anymore. People don't want to assimilate. We're not the shining beacon on the hill, to go back to the respect thing. You're talking about what is the product the United States puts out there. People don't come here to become Americans. They come here essentially for the gimme dats, like you said. And so honestly, I think that one of the first things we should do, if I could give an answer, if I was a politician, is completely turn off immigration for 10 years. I think that there needs to be that complete and total moratorium hiatus on immigration. Fix the process, secure the border, stop doing that. And I would take it a step further, because I truly don't believe that it's not the same times. We are not the same people anymore. Anybody globally, not just as Americans. That if you are a first generation immigrant, I do not think that you should have the ability to run for political office in this country. And I do not think that you have enough invested. I do not think that you have spent enough time as a citizen. Being a citizen needs to mean something. It needs to mean that the rights that you have as a citizen are exclusive to that citizenship, and that you need to do something, set up roots, have an intention of being an American, assimilate into the culture before you're allowed to make decisions for people who have been living here for 3, 4, 5+ generations. That's what I would do.
And one thing to build on that, there was a bit I was reading, and I'm going to paraphrase it. I can't remember it, but it was from St. Thomas Aquinas.
Oh,
and
very nice.
He had a very interesting take on immigration. And he did not believe that... let me turn that light back on. Sorry.
No problem.
He did not believe that immigrants should be fully given all of the rights that their fellow countrymen should be given until after 2 to 3 generations. And his logic behind that was that you cannot expect someone who is not from your culture to come in and work towards the betterment of a culture that they don't understand.
I think that's totally fair.
And I was like, actually that does make sense. Like, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you don't know how things work. You don't know the culture. Like, I wouldn't move to like China or Japan and be like, hey, we're doing it my way. Like, I know
just going to say, have either of you guys been to Japan?
Well, yes.
I have not.
Dude,
No.
how much shame have you been told that you have brought upon you as an American if you show up in another country and act American?
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally gone to other countries before.
The ugly American is a
literally.
trope.
Yes, I was just getting ready to say.
That's what we export. That's the view.
That's our jean shorts,
the ugly American,
and a 4th of July T-shirt at the Parthenon. That's the American right there,
brother. Yeah, right.
New Balances. Yeah.
And it's
like,
let's
not dish on the as a dad of a 5-month-old son.
My bad. Okay.
I rock the fanny pack and New Balances.
Sorry. I have an interesting take on that, and you're absolutely right. I think there's a such thing as like toxically American, but when I say American, I'm not talking about an actual. So James Madison is famously quoted as saying that you should read the Constitution, understand the Constitution, and teach the Constitution to your children, or otherwise we will lose it. That's what he said, James Madison, very, very famously. And I think that it was very prescient because, like, look at where we're at now. So when I say toxically American, I'm not talking about, a person that is ingrained. Like, I keep the Declaration of Independence on my wall. Like you can see, I got, I'm wearing the John Hancock.
See John Hancock. Yep.
It's like, I love it. I teach it to my children. All my kids are homeschooled, and I teach them to read by the Bible and the Constitution. Like that's what we're doing actually in the house, so that way they can understand it. And I'm not saying that all that is like, look at me. What I'm saying is like, those are the important documents. And if you're going to start as an American and as a Christian, then these are the documents that you should know, like from your youth, and be able to talk about, into your adulthood, right? But the toxic American, the one that I'm talking about, is like the Bud Light swilling, the
like plastic patriotism,
whiskey
plastic
drinking,
patriotism. I'm going to ask you to define that in a minute.
Patriotism
for real,
was perfect. The way that you said it was absolutely perfect, because he's the dude that wears, the Ranger panties, American flag, the Captain America, tank top. And then he goes overseas, like you said, and stands in somebody else's kitchen. And he's like, hell yeah, it doesn't stand up to the White House. Woo! Like the White House isn't like 2,000 years younger. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the way that people see us. And because of that, when they come here, right? Yeah, we are relatively new on the world stage. We are the
oldest constitutional republic.
We are the Richie Rich of the world. If you guys ever remember that movie from the 1990s,
I do.
like,
yeah, it's a good throwback.
Yeah.
And it's like we are super young, but so stupid wealthy that we don't even have to understand why we believe what we believe anymore. It's all fallen away to nothing but hedonism. It's all fallen away to nothing
patriotism?
But the money. Plastic patriotism.
Dude, I want you to define that, George.
I will try. I'm going to start it with a cop-out in that just as when Congress was trying to find a definition for porn, the famous line, I don't know what it is.
Great start.
No, but you remember the famous line. Everyone knows the line. I don't know. I cannot define it, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that it's a similar mentality with that, is like you said, when you see the guy wearing the American flag cut off in shorts, and then you talk to him and all they can do is just chug a Bud Light, and you say, oh, well, no, what's the greatest thing about America? Like, what are you proud about being American? They're like back-to-back World War champs. And you're like,
yeah, no, but what about what about free speech? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That's a spicy topic.
Yeah, and I think though with that mentality is like there's just a lot of people who, and we've all been guilty of this in one way or another, but like it's human nature to ride on the coattails of people who have done more than you.
Stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, and I think that's really where we've come to at a point though, where rather than stand on the shoulders of giants and then try to build up, it's just like, I'm happy here. I don't need anything more. Like, instead of this mentality of like, it's complacency kills. How many times have we heard that? We've all been in the military. We know that saying.
Yes.
And so I think it's really that mentality of like, life's good. I don't want to do anything more.
Exactly.
And there's no drive. I mean, my mentality is
velvet handcuffs.
Yeah. I mean, my mentality has really changed since I've got a son now who's 5 months old. And like my mentality has changed a lot in the sense of like, it hasn't. But like, there's different, like I've always wanted to strive for a better future for our country. But now it's a more personal take where I'm like, oh, I'm invested. I want, like, I think about it, which is an interesting kind of mentality. Is like, we all know that phrase, like, okay, boomer.
Okay.
And like, and I'll explain where I'm going in a second, but like, how did that phrase like originate and that disdain against the boomer generation? And it's because we look back at that generation that was handed everything, like we were talking about with the 60s. They were handed everything and they didn't build upon it. And I don't want my kids or my grandkids to look back at me and go, oh, you guys could have done something, and now we're up Schitt's Creek even more.
Well,
because you guys sat around.
If I could expand on that too, I saw an excellent thing online the other day, and again, I'll probably paraphrase. It was about the OK Boomer thing, and there's this like boomer generation suggestion going on about the retort for when somebody says OK Boomer is OK renter, and to laugh at them because you'll never be able to afford a house on your own, as if your bullshit decisions over the past decades
but whose fault is that?
created the housing market and economy that we have right now. And again, I'm going to quote Blink 182 again for like the fourth or fifth time this podcast. If we're fucked up, you're to blame. And that's a fact. You know, you have to understand.
There's a guy I follow. I'm blanking on his name on Instagram.
I love you, Brandon.
But he just takes apart these financial advice videos.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one where it was this guy, it was this like 50 or 60-year-old guy, and he was like, if you own 30 rental properties or 10 rental properties by the time you're 30, you're set for life. And the guy's sitting there and he paused it and he goes, oh yeah, like I can do that. Like what
Let me
what
just
did I
do
think?
that real quick.
Yeah,
Not
and
just that. Hold on.
Just stop being poor. You know,
Hold on.
Yeah, and he literally goes. He goes like,
you guys are missing something else about that. Do you guys remember in 2020 when all of a sudden the Biden administration said that people don't have to pay rent anymore because of COVID?
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah,
What do you mean own rental properties? What does that mean in the United States anymore? Because they've already proven if we have a crisis big enough, they can just turn off rental properties.
You know what's even crazier about that is the agency that they assigned to enforce that was the Center for Disease Control. As if, what fucking authority do they have? Yes, that's what they were saying that this was falling under, that the CDC was saying, well, because of the pandemic, free for all. Fuck you, landlords.
Do you remember the agency that they had to enforce the mask mandates on everybody and the vaccine mandates?
What?
It was OSHA.
Mm.
Oh, it was. That's right.
OSHA.
Yeah.
What authority do they have?
That's right.
Zero. They're all appointed
And
bureaucrats.
Then after the president, and I have to be very careful. After my boss's boss
Mm-hmm.
signed that executive order, he even stated to the press, I don't have the constitutional authority to do this, but by the time the court gets around to doing it, or legislating on it.
That's kind of what all those executive orders are in the first place. That, you know what I mean? Like, as if we don't have checks and balances. But
It's supposed to.
I've got a spicy take for you too on this conversation. Is, do you guys think everybody, the second you become of age, should have the right to vote? Or would you throw certain requirements on top of that to be able to vote?
What is the right of age?
Once you're 18, you can go vote as long as you register. You have to be for like guys at the selective service, all that stuff.
Okay, I do not believe that 18-year-olds should have the right to vote, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, no, I want you to expand on that because I also think that there should be some stipulations. But go ahead.
I don't think so, because how old do you have to be to buy a weapon?
So
it probably changes by state, right?
It does change by state.
Yeah, it changes by state.
But if we take the average across the United States, how old do you have to be to buy a handgun?
25? I really don't know the answer to the question.
21.
21 in most states, in some states 25. So if you're not old enough to buy a handgun, also how old do you have to be to buy a beer?
21.
21. So you're gonna tell me that you can join the service, go overseas, die for your country, but you can't drink a beer.
After having an O'Doul's.
Yet, we're going to allow those kids that aren't allowed to drink, aren't allowed to get a tattoo, aren't allowed to buy a handgun, but we want them to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, what are we saying, and what is the standard that we're holding right now?
Definitely a lot of illogical things.
I think that
either we have one standard across the board. This is my take, and I'll jump off. Either we have one standard across the board, and it's 18, and once you're an 18, you're an adult, and you can do anything you want. Or we raise the standard to the same place, and it's 21. But we need to have one standard. That's what I believe.
I would take it further than that, but go ahead, George.
I was going to say, I agree. I think that the standard needs to be uniform. And you brought up the purchasing a firearm aspect of it. And this is one aspect when it comes to firearm laws that really grinds my gears, is how old are you to get married? 18.
What? There's one state where you can be 16, and I can't remember
Okay,
which one it is.
16
Utah.
then. 16 is the
Utah,
lowest.
probably.
Age of consent is different in other
But,
countries too,
you know,
right?
but
Yeah.
18 more or less is you can get married and you can start a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, when you start a family, we're all married, we all have kids, right? Right? Yeah.
Yep.
What's one of the number one priorities, like the number one priority of being a spouse, is to provide for your family.
For sure.
And under that umbrella of providing is protection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're old enough to start a family, provide and protect that family,
excellent point,
then it is absurd to me that you are denied the means to protect your family.
You better have knives.
So, like, for me, like,
every wall, dude.
Yeah, like, for me, it's as simple, like, the firearm debate is like, okay, you want to raise the age to 21? Cool. Raise the marriage age to 21. It's as simple as that for me.
That is a really good point.
If you're allowed to provide and protect for the people you have literally signed a government contract saying that your duty is to provide and protect for them, then you should be allowed to buy whatever firearm you want to fulfill that goal.
I think that also goes back to, though, what the legal definition of marriage is, which has just become super convoluted. And I don't want to dive into, but there is that argument, too, is like, does marriage actually mean anything anymore?
Yeah.
You know?
But what stipulations would you put on the requirement to be able to vote, though? If you could,
I wouldn't, because it's a slippery slope.
Okay.
No, I disagree. I would actually disagree with you.
Debate it out. I want to hear this, because I have my own. I have stipulations as well.
Okay, I think that people should be able to pass a simple U.S. civics test. You become 18, you graduate high school.
It should be the same test you have to take to become naturalized.
A naturalized citizen, which is that's where I was going, Brandon. And you guys talked about how hard it is to become a naturalized citizen. I think that people that come from other countries that have to learn English, but they do the hard thing, and then they pass a U.S. civics test and they get their U.S. naturalized citizenship, they know more about U.S. civics than students graduating from high schools in Chicago, Illinois. And that one I'm firing straight at you, because we all know that Chicago, Illinois has some of the worst. No, but they do have.
There's a reason why I'm not sending my kids. There's a reason why we're going to homeschool.
Right. And I have 4 boys, and we homeschool all of them. You know,
I was homeschooled myself.
Hey, I was too. And look where we ended up, guys.
Turned out all right.
I think so. Well, we were in the Army. Yeah. He wound up in the Air Force, but okay, you know.
True. I went to Dodd school, so.
Okay, but I do think I do believe that if you're going to vote, like, hey, you turn 18, like, you have to do selective service, especially as men. Women don't have to do this, guys, but whatever. You turn 18, you sign up for your first ever ballot. There should be a test that shows up and goes, okay, before you do this, just like taking the SATs, just like taking the ACTs, you have to go to this place, sign up, take this standardized test. Here's a U.S. civics test. You know, how old does a president have to be before he can run for the presidency? How many terms, can a congressman serve?
Should be a requirement to graduate high school.
You know,
if we're going on this, though, there's something I want to add.
But there should be a U.S. civics test, and then if you can pass that,
should be to graduate high school.
Then you've earned your right to vote. But if you don't pass it, then I'm sorry, you don't know enough about.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's one party, actually the uniparty, actually both parties. They don't want people to be high enough context to actually care enough or know enough about how the sausage is made to actually vote.
Well, as Rockefeller said, he wants a nation. He said when he was talking about public schools, he said, "I want a nation of workers, not thinkers."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
That goes off into an entire other debate entirely. Dude.
But I have one question, because you brought up the president's age and all that stuff, and it's on how, and it's how much, at what age or what requirements are for people to vote.
Mm-hmm. Should there be requirements for individuals to run for office?
because should there be because age comes up a lot. I personally think it should be 35 to 65. If you're collecting Social Security, you shouldn't run for office.
So absolutely, there should. You talked about it earlier with Thomas Aquinas. Brandon talked about it earlier with people within the first or two generations coming in the United States. Like, yeah, there absolutely should be requirements for people to serve in office. I'm going to harken back to a video. This is by not Rashida Tlaib, but Ilhan Omar had a video.
Somalia thing?
Yeah,
went viral 2 weeks ago, where she is speaking in Somali about how she is fighting for the people of Somalia and will be able to. I'm going to paraphrase her, so the internet can't get mad at me. But basically said, like, I fight for the people of Somalia, and we can make the United States government bend their will to the people of Somalia. Like that. In my mind, when you say I'm in the United States Congress, but I'm fighting for the people of Somalia so that we can bend the United States government to do things for the people of Somalia, that ought to be tantamount to treason.
Yeah, I mean,
in my mind, based on what she said.
The rules for treason are very, very narrow for a reason. It would not fall under the rules for treason. But...
I said I think they should be.
Okay.
I said I think they should be.
Touche.
Yeah, you're correct.
On that note, too, I don't know if you guys saw it in Chicago, but huge news. The war has stopped, or at least it should have stopped, between Gaza and Israel.
Council? I did see, yeah.
Our city council, the city council of Chicago, voted for a ceasefire.
Is this the clapping?
The war's over. The war's over. It's done.
Hey, Brandon, we'll do the slow clap.
Yeah. And I heard about that. I'm like, the hours that they put in to make this happen, when they could have been putting in time to deal with the actual violence in Chicago.
Yeah, can I say a thing to the city council of Chicago?
Yeah, by all means.
Please.
Y'all should do something about a ceasefire in Chicago.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, dude, turn on a police scanner in Chicago for an hour and listen to it. You can get apps on your phone to do that. Do it.
I follow a couple of them.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
It's insane.
Actually, so, George, I didn't tell you this when we started, but I'm from Wisconsin.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, so go Packers, the Bears. Sorry.
Fair. I'm not a football fan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm a Cubs fan, that's it.
But my father-in-law, God bless him if he ever says this. That's sad, Brandon. My father-in-law, God bless him if he ever sees this. He will turn on his police scanner in the evenings and go out in his garage and smoke a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
And he has two settings. One is Milwaukee, and the other one's Chicago. And he'll flip back and forth and see.
He's like, I'm so glad I live here.
Right.
Well,
the funny.
I feel like Chicago's got to be worse.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing with Chicago too is
you would think so. Milwaukee's getting bad.
Oh, is it?
It's
Really.
I saw a report the other day that said Milwaukee County, which is like the center, has been again. So Chicago, you guys got flooded with immigrants like way first. As soon as Chicago started bleeding off people and closing off schools and doing all that stuff that they were doing, Milwaukee was the next targeted city.
Mm.
So they've literally been doing a fan and just targeting cities as they've been working their way west. Milwaukee was next, and so now Milwaukee just got hit. Last week I saw, I think 5,000 immigrants all of a sudden showed up in Milwaukee County.
Hey, that's only one day through the border. It's no big deal.
That's it, man.
No
Chill
big
out.
deal. But here's the thing: Whitewater, which you guys don't know a lot about Wisconsin. So Whitewater is part of the UW system. It's a little tiny town. I think it's got like 2,000 people in it, and then a subsidiary of the UW system. They had 1,500 immigrants show up there. Whitewater doesn't have, it's a small town. It's a town of 2,000 people.
Well, isn't the largest population of Muslims in the United States in Michigan?
Dearborn. Yeah, Dearborn, Michigan.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just a weird stat, Well,
I don't know why they settle there. I don't.
Yeah, it seems a weird place. Like, who the fuck wants to live in Michigan? It's so cold, Just saying, dude. I used to live on the Chequamegon Bay in Wisconsin, bro. I know what cold is like. I was stationed in Montana for 8 years. I know. I'm just saying, dude. Hell no, man. I don't want to live where the wind hurts my face. Get the fuck out of here.
You'll even live in a foreign country.
Well,
I will.
what you just said about the wind in your face, it reminded me of one of the funniest memes I've seen, because I have a couple of friends who grew up in Chicago, close friends. They've moved down to South Carolina,
I would
Texas,
hope so.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always bugging me. They're like, you got to move out of Chicago. It sucks for every reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a meme that just reminded me of it. And it goes, why would you live in a place where the wind hurts your face? And then the next three pictures were a picture of a giant wolf spider,
Mm-hmm.
a giant like python, and an alligator. And it was like, because these don't live here. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much why. That's fair.
True. Yeah.
My wife would agree with you. George, I do have to I got to get to know you just a little bit more as we're winding down. So you're an Army veteran. How long did you serve in the Army?
So I did a 3-year contract. I was an 11
Okay.
Charlie.
Oh no, an 11 Chuck.
Yeah, I was one of those guys.
All right.
I was down at Fort Campbell with the 101st.
But you said you went to Syria. When were you in Syria?
We were there from January of 19 to like October. Yeah, October of 19.
Brother, we probably shook hands.
Oh, were you there too at the same time?
Flying in and out of Erbil.
Oh, shit.
We probably did.
Damn.
That's incredible.
Look at
this.
this.
We were around like we flew into KLZ.
Yep.
I know. And then we were going around like all Manbij in that area.
Yep, man. Yeah. Did you ever make your way up? I can't.
I think we're talking about
an old gas station.
I was going to say the other infrastructure.
We should have like a brothel or something.
Yeah. No. The big fuel tanks.
Oh no! Well, are you talking about the cement factory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you were.
Oh damn! We were like there. We were like there at the same time.
I might have taught you medicine.
This
we
is
just
cute.
Didn't know we didn't know.
You
each
very
other.
well might have. Like the fact that we were like in the exact same spots. Yeah, chances are we definitely like passed each other at the very least.
It's cool. It's cool to see you again, man.
That's funny. Damn, small world.
Funny. All right, Air Force, what do you got? Come on.
No, I was just gonna say I was gonna take it back to the voting thing, because I absolutely do think I think that what I said before is true. The more egalitarian a society becomes, the more it starts to erode. And I'm not just talking about like basic things like, yes, women should have the right to vote. I do think that all this stuff that makes our society more egalitarian. I don't think things like that should go away, but I do think that voting requires competence, and not every country obviously has given the right to all of its citizens to vote. And there's been a lot of countries that have, a lot of really more fucked up things that they've done to hold people back from voting. And some things that really do kind of make some sense in going back into the vein of competence, right? I think it's pretty evident that everybody voting, we're not a democracy, okay? We do have the Electoral College, we are a republic, but there should be lines or at least things you have to meet to be able to make decisions that affect other people's lives. And I don't think it's unfair to say that you should have to prove a certain level of competence. I would not go to George and ask him to do open heart surgery on me because he has not proven that he has the competence and the knowledge to perform that task, okay? And voting, while not open heart surgery, it does affect everybody in our country's lives, right?
Yeah.
If, again, we'll tie it into the question that you wanted to bring up earlier, Chris, we were talking about. If you're letting Taylor Swift affect the way you're going to vote, maybe you shouldn't fucking be voting in the first place, okay? So a civics test, I think you should have to take. The same one that people want to become citizens of the United States have to take to graduate high school. I don't think 18. I think 18 is too young to be making decisions and voting for other people, because more than likely, like what you said, George, that you don't have a family yet. I mean, there are 18-year-olds that do, okay, but how reliable and dependable are you at 18? I remember not being ready for the world at all. Science says your brain isn't even fully developed at 18 years old, even though that's the age of being consent adulthood, right? 25, right?
Yeah.
Right. So to me, there's a lot of other things that get weird into this, right? Because if your brain's not fully developed, should you be able to join the military at 18, right? I would argue yes. And so there's all these nuanced complexities and things like that too, right? But voting wise, I would 100% say that they should raise the age to potentially something like 21 or 25. The civics test, I also think you should have a fucking job. First and foremost, you should not be leeching off society. The basic requirement for voting shouldn't be registered for selective service and
that is an excellent point.
Ability to breathe and breathing, right, to show up. I mean, hell, even people that are dead have voted, right?
We know that in Chicago. I think my dad voted against me. He passed away in 2017.
What a turd! What a turd! But no,
Brandon, if I die, don't let me vote Democrat.
Okay. I'll delete your browser history too. But no,
yeah, of course.
I mean, it's true though. I mean, I do. I think there should be a level of confidence to be proven for you to be able to vote. And that's the point I was going to make, is that I don't think breathing 18 years old should be the requirement. I just don't.
No, I agree with you 100%. And the fact of having active employment, I think that is a very good addition to those things, because, you know, if
I think that's a fair compromise to what it originally was of being a landowner. I think landowner is
entry.
That's exactly what I was going with it. And
I think that like that's
the game, man.
Like the landowner, especially today's day and age, that's way too like that's just not the world we live in.
Mm-mm.
But I think that is it gets back to the roots of what it was meant to be, in that sense of like skin in the game. Like,
listen,
right?
It's not that hard to have a job, part time even. Like, it's not a full time. Like, do you get a W-2? Okay, cool.
Even if you're 1099, but
that's the exact way that you should be able to do it. Hey, if I sign up for my ballot, okay, give me your W-2, and then you only have to pass the test once. So once you pass the test, hey, like you're in, and then just give me your W-2 each year. And if you have a W-2, okay, you can vote. That is a great. And by the way, for all the people that are mad about turning in IDs, your W-2's got your social security number in it. It's got all
everything.
Stuff. It's got everything in there, and you have a job, and you can vote. I think it's a great compromise.
Yeah.
And you're showing that you're.
The thing is, man, it goes back to the point I was trying to make before about citizenship. You know, birthright citizenship is one thing, and you can even take it another level, right? You're born in this country, you're an American, right? But you should have to earn certain rights as a citizen, certain things. I don't think voting is a right, personally. I think that if you're going to live in a society that has rules, you should meet certain obligations. Society requires obligation in order to be successful. So I think you should be doing something to attain to that, because it means something. Citizenship should not just be everything up front because you were born here in this country. There are rules. There are things that can strip you of your rights because you broke the rules, right? Why not have to attain to those things and meet certain obligations before you can make decisions for other people and use and exercise your rights as a citizen? Essentially turning on those options as a citizen.
In that same, to keep that same train of thought in a sense, one thing I ran into, because I think that you can be educated and everything, but we talked about this a little bit, like the civility and just kind of working with individuals. One thing I ran into when I ran in Chicago was the lack of civility. Okay. I had she was a member of the Democrat. She was a Democrat committee woman. I was out collecting signatures. She goes, "Hey, who are you?" I go, "My name's George Kemper. I'm running for state representative." She goes, "Who are you running against?" I go, Margaret Croak. She goes, "Well, I'm a committee member of the Democrat Party in Chicago. I'm not signing that." I go, "Okay, absolutely. Have a great day." She goes, "You're a Nazi, aren't you?" Never met me.
Solid.
She goes, she just heard that I was running as a Republican. Jumps to that.
Those are synonymous.
And then she picks...
I couldn't help but notice your entire lack of melanin. That's what I was going to say.
She pulls out her phone, takes a picture of me and says, "We'll be watching you," and then storms away. Oh, and I ran into similar characters. I'm like, oh my God. And I ran into similar characters, though, when I was knocking on doors, where people would just be so hostile. And my wife and I, someone knocks on the door and they're trying to say like, "Oh, I'm trying to get on the ballot for this or that." Yeah, I'll sign for you. I know this sucks. This is part of the process. I even said to people who were a little hesitant, this was my go-to line. I go, "Look, if I don't get on the ballot, my opponent will have no one against them. And they win by default. So at the very least, wouldn't you like someone to vote against?"
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, that's a fair point. I would like to vote against you. I was like, thanks. Thank you. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to get your vote, but like, this is how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
But the lack of civility, I'm curious, like, what do you think is the solution, or at least to start on, get the ball rolling
Mm-hmm.
in that regard?
Dude, I love that question. And I'll bring up, I don't remember who we were talking to before about this. But the topic, kind of actually what Chris said before about bar conversation, talk about religion and politics at the bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I made this point with somebody else that instead of telling people that those are the two taboo topics you don't talk about, what we should be doing is teaching our kids to have uncomfortable conversations. And that starts with religion and politics, right? If you can teach your children to have respectful, even confrontational, right, conversations, because confrontations don't have to be escalated to the point of ugliness, right? Conversations, then you're building a foundation of respect and understanding right away, right? I think so. This is centric on home. This is centric on, value systems and things like that. But instead of shying away from uncomfortable conversations and teaching people not to have uncomfortable conversations, so that when they reach the point where it's an unavoidable thing, they have the skill, they have the understanding to do that. I think that's a good first step. I also think that it should be an introduction back into the school system again on what American ideals really are. Understanding civics, understanding the way our country works, understanding too that you can be a melting pot and not accept all ideas. Okay, not all ideas are created the same. Not all ideas are valid and equal, but they are. And I don't have to give you. I don't have to adopt your set of ideals to listen to it. I can process that information and not adopt it, right?
Yeah.
So I think this all again, like it circles back to what happens in the home. And the first step is teaching people to have uncomfortable conversations, telling your kids that it's okay to do those things, and doing so in a respectful way. And again, man, this is said all the time: discipline. Your kids have to be disciplined. I also don't think that kids should have unfettered access to the internet either in this modern age. I think that there's a bad thing there. And dude, even this, like watching certain TV shows, like if you, I don't know, Chris, maybe because George, your son is still really, really young, but
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids TV shows you've watched, Chris, but a lot of them, they have good intentions, right? They'll set it up to where the kids maybe are doing something wrong, and it opens up the opportunity for the parent to step in and say this is why it's wrong, and there's an entire moral lesson at the end of the episode. Children don't understand that. They see the kids doing something wrong, and that's kind of the behavior they adopt. So I'd also say too, like, limit what your kids watch, what they watch, all this stuff. It's something that like even like I'm learning, right, about like kids in general, what they take in and information wise. So again, man, like, not to talk in circles, but it is the truth. Like, parent your children 100%,
Yeah.
or somebody will. Absolutely.
Well,
And
and
it may not be
like
the way you want them to be.
yeah, I just want to jump in on that too. It's like I think most of us used to believe like if you let your kids watch Nick Jr. or Disney, I think Disney Kids or whatever like the channel was, it was like
Yeah.
we could reasonably trust it because
Did
it
you
was.
remember
Do you remember the kids
like,
remote? Do you remember the Disney Kids remote? Like
I
there was
do.
yeah.
I do.
I grew up without cable, and I was watching Arthur, and I was like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I also grew up on Arthur, but did you know that they made Mr. Ratburn gay?
No.
No, I did not know
You
that.
didn't know that. See, you guys did. You
Did
guys
this happen
that.
like later, or was
This
this
happened in 2022. They made
Oh.
Mr. Ratburn gay, and he
I didn't
married
know
his.
Arthur was still on in 2022.
Yes, it's actually one of the longest running cartoons on PBS.
Oh, cool.
So, and this is actually very poignant that you guys missed this because I have 4 kids. So I'm going through. I have a 11-year-old as of 3 days ago. He's 11. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-month-old, or excuse me, a 3-month-old.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's like I'm watching my kids, and I used to not think about kids TV. That wasn't a thing that I thought about. It was just it's kids TV.
Yeah.
Like you said, Brandon, a problem is introduced. Parents come in, they solve the problem, kids solve the problem, and then we all read the word at the end of the show. And it's like, okay, cool. Sesame Street, Arthur, like these are the shows. Wishbone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Dude, I
You know?
love Wishbone.
Wishbone. What's the story? Wishbone, right? Like those were the shows that we grew up on. So I didn't think a lot about it. And then about again 5 years ago, all of a sudden all these shows started changing. Mr. Ratburn turned gay. You go back to the Rugrats turned off completely, but Disney started introducing because they bought out Sesame Street. They started introducing binary characters and telling kids like it's okay if you dress like a boy this day, and it's okay if you dress like a girl this day. And like parents were the ones that started highlighting these issues, being like, hold on. I noticed while my toddler was watching Sesame Street that this shit started getting really weird, right? And then politically, George, because this is your wheelhouse, like I think Virginia was the first place that we saw it like really like kind of break over, because everybody, like all the parents were like, what in the hell is going on with our kids' curriculum, but they haven't stopped. So it was like it keeps rolling forward, and then Netflix, with the tweenies or whatever, started showing like kids like tweaking. That was it.
Well, yes.
What's the you know what? There are still two good shows out there. My wife and I actually were just talking about this. Once it gets old enough, we're like, because we're not going to do TV where it's like you come home from school, throw on the TV. We're like, we're going to stick with what we grew up with: Saturday morning cartoons.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, we were like, okay, what shows are good out there? And we came up with two so far.
Okay.
One, Recess.
I love Recess.
Recess is great.
It's on Disney Plus. My wife and I were watching it. Like
TJ is my hero.
My son's name is TJ.
Oh my god!
Not after that. It just worked out. His name's Timothy James, but his name's TJ, and we're like, oh man! And it's such a great show. We went as them actually. We went as Spinelli and TJ for Halloween last year.
Nice.
And then the second show, the Star Wars nerd in me, I was like, oh, he's watching Clone Wars. He's watching Star Wars. Right. Like, it'll be entertaining and all and good. But it's funny is that like on that, what you're saying is like the fact that my wife and I were talking about shows like, in a year or a few years, whatever, there's nothing new. It's like we got to go to the old stuff. We got to go to stuff that's been canceled. Not canceled in the sense of like culturally canceled, but like the shoys were actually canceled and they're
just off the air. Yeah.
Just off air shows.
Hollywood has not made anything new in about 15 years. I don't think I've seen anything like relatively like new. So for those of you parents out there, anybody watching this that is a parent, this is the hack that I found. Go onto YouTube, create yourself a YouTube channel, and then you can go out and search this stuff. Go out and find your favorite Disney shows from back in the day, like Recess, like anything. There is some random YouTube channel that always posts it and posts it back.
Yep.
Yeah. You can go find it in a playlist, and you can play your kids Rugrats and Recess,
all the old good stuff.
Real Monsters, and
dude, all Real Monsters. Yes.
Ren and Stimpy, and maybe not that last one. I don't know.
Dude, that one is pretty weird, man. Yeah, no.
If you want the kids to like really start like getting some deep existential thoughts, have them watch Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Dude, I love Courage.
Courage. Do you remember Bobby?
Mm-hmm.
Bobby is way. Bobby's World. There's the one. Bobby's
Howie
World.
Mandel did a bunch of the character voices for it.
That's
Bobby's World.
way back in the day. Or here's my personal favorite, guys: Darkwing Duck.
Oh, that's a good one.
That was. Yep, that was.
I saw a funny meme about that actually recently, and it was Disney went through the phase where they said, "How do we avoid copyright infringement?" And they said, "Just throw a duck bill on it."
For real though.
And then it showed all of the different duck themed movies and shows, and it was like, Scrooge McDuck, all of these, and they're like, there's Batman Duck, there's Scrooge Duck, like every duck. They're like, just put a beak on it, just put a bill.
The Adventures of Chip and Dale. It's freaking literally Tom Selleck and Harrison Ford. You know what I mean?
It really is.
Yeah. It's so funny. That's true. You remember Animaniacs?
Yeah,
dude, I love Animaniacs.
Pinky and the Brain.
Pinky and the Brain, dude. Yeah, those are the
Yeah, I
I think
WB
that
shows.
was like, yeah, that was, yeah.
Warner Brothers.
That was it, man. That was our Saturday morning. I remember
That was
waking
Channel
up
26 in Chicago.
like I would wake up 05:30. So you and I are like around the same age because I would wake up like 05:30 Saturday morning. I would run out and I would grab a bowl of cereal,
Yep.
like
Cereal?
cereal. Like
Words are hard.
I was
It's the discount Cheerios.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what my
There's no
mom could
age.
afford, guys. It's fine. And I would lay on the front of my couch with the bowl in my
Ralston
hands.
brand.
Yeah, dude, and I would be eating it, and it would be Ariel, right? The Little Mermaid cartoon.
yeah, that show. That's right, yeah.
They did that.
They
for
did a
long
spin-off
time.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it would be
Beetlejuice.
then it would be Darkwing Duck, Beetlejuice, and then
Aladdin had one. Like they did Aladdin and Hercules shows too.
They did
Mhm.
an Aladdin one, right? It was ABC's #1 Saturday morning, kids and girls.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh.
Remember that, guys?
Wow, dude.
and then as we worked like late into the Saturday morning, we would have, you said Beetlejuice. I'm missing
Mhm.
one. There was another Disney before it broke into recess. There was one more show, guys.
It was a Disney one? Oh, I can't remember.
It's
Yeah.
evading me. And then when we broke into primetime, because primetime Saturday morning, you kids don't even realize this. Saturday morning started at 5:30.
Oh, Saturday morning
realize
was
that.
like,
Yeah.
it was the marathon every day, every
It is.
Saturday.
Yep.
9:00. It was recess, and then it was just Zaboomafoo, and it just opened up from there,
Oh, yeah.
guys.
You had like Pokemon, Power Rangers, all that
Oh my
stuff.
God.
Pokemon.
dude.
Oh man, it just went all day. Like
Yes.
Saturday was for the boys. You kids don't even realize this.
It's the OG
Because-
Saturdays are for the boys.
That's where it came from.
I mean, I honestly, it's funny as like the Saturdays of the boys, like that actually was true. Like I remember being a kid and having like a buddy sleep over, or a couple
Yeah.
buddies
Hey.
would sleep over Friday night,
Friday night, yeah.
and then we'd be like, "All right, we're waking up early in the morning, and we're just watching."
5:30.
Yeah.
It's when
The chances are you probably didn't even go to sleep yet either.
Yeah, oh yeah, chances are we were just, high on all the sugar we'd eaten that night, and we're
Yeah.
just going through.
Exactly. Super
because
Nintendo.
you kids don't even
Oh.
realize this, but the channel used to turn off at 02, and
Mhm.
it would have
The national
this
anthem.
thing, which was the national anthem,
Mhm.
and then it would go, and we'd just be white static.
And then the ghost
then
would
zero-
come through the screen.
Yeah.
Right?
You remember? Oh, this reminded me.
She would crawl through.
These
Right.
these are two shows that they were short lived, but I think you guys are in the we're all in the same age range, so you guys should
Mhm.
remember them. Do you remember Beast Wars?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Dude.
Yes.
Oh my
Gargoyles.
God.
You remember Gargoyles?
Gargoyles, and then the second one that I've just recently remembered was Starship Troopers, the animated series.
Okay,
never
so
watched
going back to Beast Wars,
Beast Wars was the greatest.
Yes.
it's actually free on Amazon, guys.
Oh.
What?
I went back and I
How bad is that
I was
animation?
gonna say, is it terrible? Is it terrible?
Yeah.
It's,
Is it just fucking atrocious? Yeah.
I had to drink,
PowerPoint's better nowadays.
Right. Yeah. Stick Figure Death Theater. Do you guys remember that at all?
Yeah.
Dude.
I had to
Early
drink like 3
internet.
beers, and then I was like, Carson, you've got to watch this, and we sat down. But
OG
here's
Power
what's really
Rangers.
here's what's really funny. He sat down and he watched it, and he
Mhm.
like got off the couch and went up next to the TV, and was just like, Dad, is Waspinator gonna beat Cheetanor? And I was like, or Cheetor. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't know. You got to keep watching it, dude. He was like, and he's like 11, and it's 2023. I was like, dude,
Oh,
Dude, this
It
shit is
holds-
still
you're
relevant.
giving
dude.
me hope. I can't wait for that now. I'm like, all right, a couple years in the future, I can't wait.
It's
it
happening,
still
dude. It's
slaps. It still slaps, dude.
Being
You
a dad
gotta,
is
you
a
gotta
chance
go
to
back
play
and
with your old
download it.
toys and watch all your old TV shows, dude.
Yeah, I am extremely excited for that.
But here's the thing, guys. When the kids are old enough, you have to eventually give it away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad because there's this whole thing about dudes that are still buying Legos
Mhm.
and they're like in their 40s and they don't have kids, and it's like,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing with them?
Should
Yeah.
they be able to vote?
Hey,
What's funny is, I have
I guess
at
if they
my
can
mom's
afford
house-
Legos.
Oh, I was looking at the prices of. I was at Target the other day. I was looking, and I grew up as a
They
kid.
might slip through
I
the
loved
cracks.
Lego, like we all do. I was looking at the prices of some of those sets. It's insane.
It is.
And I
It's so
remember,
See why
bad.
my dad told me to go fucking pound sand if I wanted Legos.
And I remember at my mom's house, she still has in her garage a massive tub of all the like bricks.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, we're not buying new sets. I'm just gonna
Don't
one
need 'em.
Christmas just give them a giant
You
like
don't.
laundry container of bricks and be like, have a blast.
Yeah.
So Mrs. CFC over here, she tells the boys, because they're like, I was not a Lego kid. You
Mhm.
guys were
Speaking
Lego
of Lego, I got a brick in there.
Oh,
dude, that's cool.
Congratulations. I was not a Lego kid growing up. I was
Sad
like
face.
other stuff. Yeah, like I'm not like you guys. I'm a dumb people mechanic. I wasn't like you guys that have engineering knowledge. I did other things. But anyway, yeah, you're smart, Brandon. You joined the Air Force.
Yeah, you're an Air Force guy. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Like I didn't.
I was still
But
an
anyway,
MP.
like you wanted to be Army, didn't you?
No, he wanted to be
No.
SF.
It's true. Yeah.
But anyway, my wife Hannah,
Yeah.
she tells the boys every night. She's like, if your bricks are out, I'm eating them with my vacuum. And like every night they're like, oh, and they're trying to like find them all. Every night the vacuum finds them. And we've told them, like, if they get vacuumed up.
Trash.
And there was one Christmas 2 Christmases ago. This is a funny story, where we bought my oldest son. We bought him one of those like Triceratops Lego pieces. So we had Christmas breakfast, opened all the presents, and then here was Dad. And I was like, okay, I gotta put together. I was not a Lego kid. You guys are Lego kids. I was not. And so I'm literally flipping through this daggone book, and I'm like, I'm building this freaking Triceratops, and
Dude,
it's like 3
you begin to
feet
understand
tall.
why IKEA is the way they are too, though.
Like, yeah, and so I'm building this.
It's like for an adult.
I'm getting ready to start swearing, like thinking about this memory. So I build this daggone Triceratops. It's like 3 feet tall with a tail, and I get it like right to the end, and I got like 3 pieces to put on it, and then the baby wakes up, and the baby comes in to the room where we're at. Me and Carson are there, and the baby climbs up on the chair next to me, and he reaches across with his hand, and I'm like literally like I'm looking this way for just a second, and he goes shuffle, and the Triceratops hits the floor and shatters into a million pieces because
Oh no.
because I was gonna do the thing where my uncle told me, because my uncle was a Lego kid, and he was like, hey, when you get the Legos, paint the outside with super glue, right?
Okay.
That's the thing you're supposed to do. And I literally looked over here for a second, and here comes my 3-year-old, and he goes, shatter. And I was like,
Sick.
that was 6 hours of
Do
work.
it again.
I literally stood up from the table. I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to pour a whiskey. And I didn't come back. I was like, that's it. That's all you get from me. I built that thing for 6 hours. And that's the first and the last time that I was a Lego person.
Wow. Dude, your kid just literally said, fuck you.
Yeah, man. It's like, but kids will do that. And
Oh,
here's the
yeah.
thing.
No, for sure.
Like, for you, George, you have a 5-month-old son, right?
Yeah.
You are going to have the best times of your life starting about 24 months from now. So,
I can't wait. Well, and it's funny is I recently heard a really interesting take on it. And I'm sure you guys probably have too, but I saw it was like a reel on Instagram. And it was and this was actually reminds me of a thing I wanted to bring up. But it was whenever you're frustrated with your kid, imagine you're 90 years old, you can go back in time, but the only time you can go back to is this exact moment when you're mad at your kids.
Yeah, I've heard that before too. I like that. I just try to remember that you're not going to have this again. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that is a good take. But what that reminded me of, like we've been loosely talking about like morals and stuff like that with the country. And I'm sorry to go back to a more serious.
No, don't be.
No, you're good.
But I realized this, and I was talking to a buddy, and he was like, "Oh, did you see this reel?" And he was like, "Oh, on my reels, when you go to the page, like the search page, he was like, oh, you see some random shit, like all this stuff." And it made me think that, as annoying as that is, that it like knows who you are. I hate the fact that this algorithm knows who I am, so to speak. But it did make me take an account and say, hey, what type of person am I, and what do I enjoy looking at? And so if you're the person who, when you go to your search page on Instagram and it's littered with whatever, say it's littered with stupid jokes, like, you know, just sophomoric humor, or it's littered with half-naked girls dancing, like OnlyFans stuff. That's a reflection of who you are, because that algorithm's smart enough to know what your interests are. Yeah. And that's what catches your attention. And it caught me where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be more self-aware about what I scroll and what pages I follow and stuff, because that is a reflection of who I am. Yeah. Which then, and we talked about this on the phone the other day, which, and I apologize for going long on this, but then it goes into an aspect of,
I don't have the time of
this. It goes on this aspect of this reflection, especially since I've had a kid, but I've always had this thought of, if I ever, and I do this probably like twice a year, and it's twice a year, I ask myself, if I could meet 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old me, what would his impression of me be? And I know he would look at me and be like, whatever, blow me off. But the reality of it is that if he would have met me and looked at me now and go, you know what? That guy's a pretty solid dude. I want to be like him when I grow up. Then I think that I'm living my life decent enough. But if 15, 16-year-old me would have met me and said, that guy's a schmuck, I don't want to be anything like him, then I need to reevaluate who I am. And so that kind of keeps me on track on life, of both within, you know, in a marriage, in a career, and then morally and as a friend. It kind of keeps me in check and saying, like, who really am I? Am I the person that I wanted to be when I was growing up? Am I now the person that I want my son to be? So that was just
doing it for the little dude.
Yeah.
No, I love that, man. I think that's just like anytime I've had conversations like this, right? This is just like an observation. I feel like men have that conversation with themselves about who you were as a kid. Would that little kid be proud of you more than women for some reason? And if there's women out there listening, our demographics suggest otherwise when I look at the analytics. But please let me know, like, if you guys do think that way, you know, would 8-year-old, you know, me be proud, you know, 8-year-old little girl me be proud, or whatever, you know. I think that's really interesting. And I wonder like why that is, that men reflect that way introspectively and see themselves as a little kid. Like, do you think it's because, you know, as men, our you know, general experience is that as kids we get quickly shoved into a box of certain things we're allowed to be? Or like, what do you think that is?
I'm going to tie it all the way back to what we said at the very beginning, and the question that you maybe answer when we open the podcast, and that is, what is it for a man to be alive? And that we're eternal, and that okay, so maybe there's a certain amount of society that shoves it on us as men, because we are expected to protect, provide, and preside over our families. So we have the weight of the world upon us. But no, man, I think it's that as human beings, there's a part of us that's eternal, and so we want something of us to be remembered. We want something of us to echo into eternity, like God made us. I'm going to tie it right back into the top.
There's a quote, and I just remembered this, kind of like with this, what we're talking about, of like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a good person? And someone that those after you look up to. And, you know, and while I'm Catholic, born and raised Catholic, I do think that there are other religions out there and other cultures that there's merit to it. And when I look at, like, you look at ancient cultures, a lot of it was praying to their ancestors for strength, for guidance. And I think that there is some aspect to that. And so it's like, you want to be that person that your ancestors, when you're an ancestor, when they look back and they say, I want to exemplify this in like this individual, And there was a quote I came across. I was reading this book called A Hill Worth
That is
Dying
a
On.
great book, brother. That is
It
a
is.
great
Yeah.
book.
And there was a quote in it that I came across, and I love this, and it's from Teddy Roosevelt. And it is, "No man is worth his salt who is not ready at all times to risk body, to risk his well-being, to risk his life in a great cause."
I love that.
And
Wow.
I was like,
He is one of the most underrated presidents.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I was like, that quote hit me so hard, where it's like, how many times have you met people who, like, they're opinionated, but that's it?
George, can I say this to you? Is that absolutely antithetical to the military that we served in?
Oh, dude.
Can we talk about that for a second?
We can.
If there was it like the non-commissioned officer corps, so you were enlisted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm enlisted. You're enlisted, right, Brandon?
Mhm.
So if our enlisted, betters were able to throw their rank on the table every single time that they saw an injustice and just be like, hey, if this is not the thing, get rid of me. How different would the military be? And then for those of you out there that are in the officer corps, listen to me right now. I know for a fact, I gotta be very careful about what I say because I'm still in. But we know for a fact that there are those of you out there that are not taking your oath seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that those of us that are enlisted men have a hard time following you is because we know for a fact by the way that you act that you are not willing to throw your rank on the table.
Exactly.
And there are injustices that are perpetrated.
Yep.
Right? Like if we could reinstate that to where at every level people just looked at the guiding documents. Oh my God, the U.S. Constitution, the UCMJ. Just look at it; it's written in black and white. It's already there, and you just said, based on these documents, you are not holding yourself accountable.
I don't know if you. I feel like you guys have this quote in the Army, but that phrase, "Do what your stripes can handle." You guys familiar with that one?
That is a very thing. Do what your rank can handle. I actually told my junior buddy of mine that just yesterday.
Yeah. Dude, that's a very real thing. I mean,
actually did.
That can mean so many different things too, right? You say it to an E2, E3, do what your stripes can handle. But dude, when you're an E9 or an E8, you're a senior non-commissioned officer. If you're not doing what your stripes can handle and what you fucking know your stripes can handle, then you're fucked up, and you are now part of that system.
It comes down to, we were talking on the phone earlier, like we were chatting about how, like, with law enforcement in general.
Yes. I love this.
I think that really comes down to, like, we're all born and raised at a time when it was you back the blue no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think
that's been a thing that I have had to come to.
I've had to grapple with that. I mean, my
2 years.
Oh yeah.
My brother-in-law is a cop. One of my closest friends is a Chicago cop, and I respect and love them. I mean, they're great guys, but as an institution, you got to look at it and go, and I know it's like this cliche saying I've heard, but it's like, why back the blue if the blue doesn't back you? Like there's to a fine line.
I had a thing too, Brandon.
I was gonna say the meme I shared the other day, and we talked about this on the phone, George, is that there's this picture of a truck and it's got these two stickers, and one of them is the Gadsden flag, and the other one is the back the blue thing. It says these things can't coexist, and that's the truth, man.
At the same time.
And what it boils down to is, I will never be one of these personally. Whenever one of these back the blue people, no matter what, because being completely and totally an ideologue in any way, shape, or form is wrong. You should be nuanced. But the thing is, too, the people who are executing laws that are unconstitutional or unjust or whatever are, in my opinion, worse and complicit in it as the people who are saying this is what the unjust law is, this is what the unconstitutional law is. And I use the reference I gave you on the phone the other day, George. Those people that recently made its way around social media, wheeling Thomas Jefferson, the statue of Thomas Jefferson, out are just as fucking bad as the people that said take it down.
That was the Virginia State House, wasn't it?
I think so.
Which was literally the state where he was the governor. He was the governor of that state, and then the third president of the United States, and they took him out of his own state house.
Yeah,
you know, it's a fun fact.
That's a double knife in the back.
It is. What is
So
it?
we're not even going to remember you in the state of Virginia where you were the governor.
Yeah, fun fact about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams: they both died on the same day of the same year, and that day was the 4th of July.
That's right.
Yes, I did know that.
You can't tell me Divine Providence didn't play a hand, man. Just saying.
Yeah. No, and you know,
that's a great photo that you brought up. The Hill Worth Dying On.
Hill Worth Dying On.
I bought the digital copy of it when I first saw it making its way around social media. And if you haven't read it, I definitely encourage you to. A lot of the things that we've been talking about, you know, the civics in our country and what it means to be an American, that book definitely encapsulates a lot of those things. And the cool part too is it's not a long read. So
no, I was gonna say it's like 50, 60 pages.
Can I ask one more question before we end up tonight?
Yeah, and then when we end, there was one more. Because I brought up one quote in it. There's one thing that I was like reading. I was reading it today, and I was
just give me one more question before.
No. I'll end it. I'll end it on when we're all finished. I was like, there's one point where I was like, oh, this is a great ending.
Okay, we'll let you finish.
Okay, George. So, assume there's a guy like me in the military that's getting ready to transition out, asking for a friend, or a young person. That is trying to get involved into politics because they want to make a difference. Because you're a person that rotated out of the military, you made the transition, you ran for state house. You're on delayed success, but you did the thing. If you could talk to them, how does a person get involved in politics? How do they do that? Because I think there are a lot of patriots out there that are starting to be interested, and they're waking up and they're realizing that the sausage isn't made the way they thought it was made. And Americans are interested in taking their country back.
Turning it to a government of the people and for the people.
Right. So how do the people get involved in politics? What would you tell them?
I would tell them first and foremost, forget any opinion you have about parties. I ran into I differ in opinion with Republicans in Chicago as much as I do on other topics as Democrats in Chicago. And that's not to say don't work. Like, I firmly believe you should, in a perfect world, work with both sides of the aisle. But don't think that one side or the aisle is better than the other.
We have a bipartisan system.
So my message in that regard is kind of look at the cards you're played or you're dealt and play those. So if you live in an area where you think you might have a better chance of winning as a Democrat, a moderate Democrat, run on that. If you think that Democrats are fed up and there's more Democrats than Republicans, run as a moderate Democrat.
So you're speaking to independents right now.
I'm speaking to independents.
So you're talking about moderating both parties right now. Would that be fair?
Yeah. I would say choose one of the parties. Unfortunately, that's what we're stuck with. But I think moderating
the Democratic Party is as
it's as important
as pushing the Republican Party right. Because if we can do both those things at the same time, then we're pushing the cultural window right. Would that be
exactly
fair?
Yeah. So I would say don't get caught up in party. Look where you have the best shot, and and find what the most people can agree on. And in that same regard, avoid certain topics. You can feel one way about one way or another. It depends on where you live. So
for you in
Chicago. For me, one big thing was I was constantly asked, what is my take on abortion? And
I thought that would be the one.
Yeah, and it's a fair question. It's a very hot topic for both sides. And my honest answer was, I don't believe that abortion is right in almost all cases. I was like, I don't believe it's right. But me getting elected isn't going to change anything about the policy in the state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even focused on that because it's already set in law. And so I would say, look, I want to focus on corruption in the state. I want to focus on being overtaxed, and I want to focus on violence.
So it sounds.
And so it's like you focus on the things that you can change.
So it sounds to me like what you did, and this is a crazy thing, is you were yourself.
Yeah, crazy idea
to the voters,
well,
and you told them the truth, and you treated the voters like adults.
Yeah, so crazy idea.
Instead of treating them like a bunch of like lemmings in different, aisles.
Yeah, no, and so that was
crazy.
The funny thing is, like, one of my big aspects when I was running was like I truly believe that our country could change overnight if everyone who ran for office saw it as service in the same way as being in the military.
That is
brilliant. And it's like, we all know the phrase, thank you for your service.
Thank you for
your service. We've heard it. Like, we've heard it a million times. But when's the last time anyone has ever, like, thought about that for a politician? And so it's like, I would love to call up my senator and congressman just to say, hey, thank you for serving us. And that's it. But instead, I'm calling him saying, hey, I think that they should vote the yes or no on this bill. I'm tired of the way he or she have been handling it. They don't actually serve us because we laugh at the idea of, why would you thank a politician? And so I think, like, running to actually serve and not seeing it as a career is the key. It's not a stepping stone. Getting to the state office so you can get to the state Senate, so you can get to Congress, so you can get to the Senate, to get to president.
I would push back on you is, when was the last time a politician was actually not electable, but when was the last time that we were able to, like, push back on them? When was the last time they were accountable to us?
I think it's the point you're trying to make, George, isn't it? That they should be worthy of being told thank you for your service rather than
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I had the answer to that question, I would
radically change American government.
I'd win in a landslide. I'd be president in this election.
I know. More votes than Joe Biden.
Term limits for Congress, yes or no?
Yes, and added age limits.
Dude, if you can be too young, you can be too old.
Okay.
I think you should be 30. I think for
so are we?
I think 65. I think if you hit 65, you're not allowed to hold office.
I agree.
So if you're the age limit where you can collect Social Security,
you
should not
finish your term. You can finish your term.
I think
if you're like 64, 63, and then your term finishes. But if you can collect Social Security, you have no business serving.
You are now too far removed from the youngest people you now represent, in my opinion.
Well, not just that, but you're literally voting for the Social Security net. You're in that bracket.
Yeah,
isn't that what's called a conflict of interest at that point?
Yeah. And then the second thing I would say, or the next thing I would say with your question of, like, how they start into it is. And I know this might come off as cliche and like, oh, duh. But I think after COVID, it kind of got diminished, is get to know your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to win a state rep race or even a school board race if no one in your area knows you.
Yeah.
If
you're just some recluse and you have these great ideas.
Yeah, but what about mail-in voting? With the whole
that's a whole different conversation.
Okay.
I'm just saying on getting involved, and someone who wants to start and get involved into local or state politics.
Okay.
I would say that
local
you need to start with your community. Know the people who are going to vote for you. Knock on doors. If your next door neighbor, like the other day, I have no plans on running, period. Like, if it happens again and the opportunity provides itself, great. But, like, it's not in my plans. But, like, be a good neighbor. So a week or two ago, we had a big snowstorm. I have a snowblower. I went up and down our entire block and just snowblowed all of the walkways and the sidewalk because I had the time and I could do it.
11-year-old do that.
Yeah, once TJ's old enough to do it, I'll have him do it. But it's like, when we moved in to our neighbors left and right, we brought over a greeting gift. I baked a pie. And we just went over, just shake their hand, say, hey, we just moved in. Nice to meet you. It's just about building community.
My mom.
Because your goal, if you're running and you win, is to represent that community. So build within that community, and then you can represent them. Because if you haven't built it, you're not going to know who they are, and you don't deserve to represent them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks, great.
My mom used to make me carry loaves of bread up and down the block. And it wasn't even just people that moved in. It was like, oh, Chris, so-and-so up the street, they just, they had, like, the funniest one, I'm trying to remember back to when I was, like, 11. She said her cousin just lost, like, his middle school football game. Take him a loaf of bread. And I was like, what?
Make him a sandwich, Chris. Make him a sandwich.
So I used to do that, like, but what's funny, Brandon, is like we're Midwest boys. Like he understands exactly what I'm talking about. So I would be carrying like loaves of bread up and down the street, just like, what in the heck, Mom? Like, knock on the door. Hey, I'm Mr. Hambrock's son. Like, oh, and then like the mom would look at me,
why
and like expect. Well, no, she would expect me to do the whole thing, which is like, okay. I would have to tell why I'm carrying a loaf of bread. I can't just like be like here. It would be like, okay, I heard you
looking for lunch meat.
Yeah, you're not an Amazon delivery.
Yeah, and I don't have the Mormon tie, so it's like, what are you doing here? I heard your son lost a middle school football game. Oh, thank you. Tell your mom we says hi. Like. And
that's
then
the
she
most
would
random shit ever.
Relieve me.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dude, tell him, George. That shit is true.
It's a different culture. Like
here's another one. If you give somebody a gift in the Midwest, you are culturally bound to tell them how much money you saved on it. You must say this. Yeah, no, I'm George.
50% off the target.
Well, yeah. The other,
yes. Hey, it was 25% off at Fleet Farm.
I got a great deal on it.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. I got it half off.
You must say it. You have to. It's a thing, because otherwise they won't take it because it must be on a discount.
Sorry.
What's another? Yeah, what's
I paid full
thing,
price
George?
for this.
One of my favorite stereotypes about Midwesterners. Is the and this happened all the time, and I do this. I'm so guilty of this. When someone's leaving our house, I'll walk them out to their car, and then I will talk. I will talk to them while they're sitting in their car running for like 20 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, all right, bye. Oh wait, one more thing. Oh wait, bye.
Hold on.
I do the same
wife
thing,
says she wants to send you with some casserole, and then you lean in their car door window.
Yeah.
Here's one. The Midwest 4-way stop. Nobody's ever going anywhere. Oh no, you go.
That's my pet peeve. My mom is from Boston, and Boston drivers are known.
Yeah,
and she taught me early. It's called the right of way, and so it's the person to your right.
Okay,
and so like that's been just like Manchurian like candidate drilled into my brain. Like if I pull up and someone's to the right and they don't move, I start laying on the horn and like waving them on like I'm like a street cop. Like that one I won't agree with you on, because like I've just been grilled in like, no, there are rules to the road, you go.
So I'm the opposite of you, bro. I moved from Wisconsin out to Washington State, and it took me a while to get used to it. And I'm just like, man, I'm sitting at this 4-way stop forever as people just keep zooming by, and I'm like, nobody's letting me in. And then finally the guy behind me is honking. That was back in 2014.
Are you the American that fucks the roundabout up for everybody too?
No. So I
Those make sense.
Dude.
Okay, hold on, Brandon. That's not fair. So I was the guy that pulled up to the roundabout in 2014 and then stopped because I was like,
Do I stop in the roundabout?
He said, yeah. I like this isn't a stop sign. What is this?
You let everybody in as
You know
making your way around, right?
You know, I'll put this out here. Next time, if I ever run again, here's my camp. Here's my number one priority.
Hell yeah!
All 4-way stops are turned into roundabouts.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because I was
right on that.
Yes.
And I'll fix the potholes. The potholes.
Sold.
Fix
Sold.
that, Pete Butt gig.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but eventually in about 2015, I finally figured it out, and I was like, oh, if I'm just more aggressive, then everybody will stop for me, and then it's just been a like.
So my insurance has gone up like crazy.
Yeah, I figured out the roundabout, and I'm good.
Yeah,
now.
that's good. Okay, so George, I want to ask you one more question to at least before here, but we're on the phone.
No, I'm happy to stay on.
Oh, me too. Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna hard pivot then because I want to know. You seem like you had a pretty deep interest in the paranormal when we were on the phone, and I like to get weird on this podcast. Okay.
All right.
So
let's go down this route.
What like supernatural paranormal vein really gets you going? What is it?
There's a couple.
Okay.
So as we talked about earlier when we said, with J.R. Tolkien's history turned into myth turned into legend.
Mm-hmm. There's
a lot of paranormal stuff where it's kind of like, oh, it's all out there. But I really like the more like, I'm loosely saying grounded because we're talking about conspiracy theories and paranormal.
Right.
But like, I really love the giants and the Bigfoot stuff.
Okay.
Because like you look at some of that stuff and you hear some of the stories and you're like, that adds up. Like if you suspend like a little, you put away, you turn off your conspiracy theory like alarms. You're like, some of that actually checks out. Like that's not so far fetched. Some of these theories are so far fetched and they're ridiculous, but they're still fun. Like I like conspiracy theories. Any conspiracy theory, I look at them as like a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
Like there are really shitty shows on Netflix that I'll watch, and I know they're of no value, but they're entertaining.
Sure.
It's like that's how I see some conspiracy theories. I'm like, I don't buy into it, but God, I love this idea.
Right.
Monsters and Mysteries in America is one of my favorites, guys.
Yeah.
Which one?
Monsters and Mysteries in America.
Oh yeah,
Amazon show. Like,
I
watch it with my 11-year-old. It's great.
And then to tie in with the Bigfoot and the giant stuff is like we talked about this a little bit. I think this one actually scares me.
Okay.
Like genuinely concerned is the cave systems and missing persons reports.
Yes,
dude, in the national parks.
That one is like one of those where I'm genuinely like,
Brandon, you know what we're getting ready to do, dude.
Yeah. No. So here's an interesting thing. If you guys haven't looked this up before, Zach and I have talked about another episode, but there are these things called the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins and the Kelly Hopkinsville event. Have you guys ever heard of that? George, you have. Okay. Chris,
I have only because of you.
Okay.
Only because of you.
Yeah.
Because of listening to your podcast.
I'll recap it real quick, right? So essentially, there was a family that lived all in the same house. This is like, grandparents, a couple of different generations of people. And one day they reported that they had to basically fight off goblins with guns. They were trying to kidnap people. And the police made a report, came out to the house, saw it all, shot up, all this stuff. And, tried to get spun that the family was drunk and all this stuff. And they weren't. And there's this whole debacle about
it. Imagine like J.R.R. Tolkien's like goblins, orcs. Like that's what they describe.
That'd be terrifying.
So the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins have a very distinct look. And the Japanese, I think this is really interesting, found out about what they look like and actually made a Pokemon after the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins. So if you look up the Pokemon Sableye, it is meant to be a depiction of what the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins are. Okay.
Right. Which is why my parents wouldn't let me hang out with Pokemon because they were like, they're all demons.
Exactly. Yeah, dude. Pocket monsters. But there's a TV show, it was on YouTube for a while, called Hellier. And one of the things they talk about and they reference in that show is the Kelly Hopkinsville event, right? And they go and they interview people in Appalachia, essentially, there where the Mammoth Cave system essentially is what runs around there in Kelly Hopkinsville. And one of the things they discovered is essentially that people out there, far removed from the rest of society, are taught about not going into the woods because of the cave system, and not because of the dangers, but because of what may lure you down there. And if you hear your name being called out, no, you didn't. Or if
Okay,
you
so
never whisper
so
or whistle in the dark, things like this. But that the
so
Kelly.
so like, let me jump in because I was actually, like, I say I'm from Wisconsin, but I was
Mhm.
actually born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was
Okay.
raised across the river in northern Kentucky. So
Mm-hmm.
Mammoth Cave is like in my back door.
Mm-hmm.
100% everything that you're saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was born in 1990,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents told me when I was a kid, don't go into the woods
Mm-hmm.
because weird stuff happens in the woods of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Like it still happens
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they
Like
interview all these
I'm just
people
backing
that
you
live
up.
out there, and essentially that,
Yeah.
if you see something trying to like call out to you, and then wandering off into the trees and then waiting for you, don't,
Yeah,
because
Puckwitches,
Go the other way.
you're gonna disappear.
goblins.
And
Yeah.
so part of the lore around the Kelly Hopkinsville event essentially is that one of the kids was reporting seeing these, and the kids all knew about it. And one of the men in the town tried to get another man who like lived nearby, like a neighbor as close as you can be, to go and essentially blow up an old mine that was kind of an offshoot of the cave system, to combat this from happening. So there was like they saw it as a real physical threat, right?
Yeah.
um but to go back to what we were talking about before we hit record, so the Mammoth cave system is enormous. It's so
Yeah,
freaking big.
it's
And
miles and miles.
there's all these different cave systems in the national parks. Obviously, there's a hot zone for those disappearances like we talked about, but it also runs along the same line as a
Ley
bunch of other
lines.
little weird shit that happens in the
Yep.
United States. And there's a book. Then we had the guy on here who was the subject of the book, Chuck Zukowski, called the UFO Highway. Um,
Mm.
but there's all these disappearances and sightings along this line. And one of the cool things in that conversation we had with Chuck is I asked him about Skinwalker Ranch, and he kind of like shoved it off because he said there's 1,000 Skinwalker ranches out there, and he's like, that's just the
Mm.
one that gets
Get
all the
some media
notoriety,
attention.
right? Yeah. And having been stationed in Montana for as long as I was, okay,
Sure.
it's big sky country, right?
It is
Great
big
Falls,
sky, man.
Montana has a minor league baseball team, and they are called their mascot is called Orbit. Okay, it's everything is centric around UFOs. And the Malmstrom incident that happened, I want to say in the 60s or 70s, I can't remember, where essentially all of these, I'll recap it again for everybody listening. So Montana has a missile field. And when I say missile field, I mean ICBMs, right? So nuclear weapons. They're all in the ground. It's the biggest missile field, and they have all these things around the missile field, essentially where people are posted, and they perform security for those missile silos. And there's a bunch of different communication systems that go up between the missile silos, the people that secure them, the people that operate them, all this stuff. Well, the incident that happened is essentially the security forces members that were stationed and posted out at all these sites started reporting all these weird orbs hovering over the LFs, the launch facilities. And then the missileers, who are the ones who turned the key, lost comms with those ICBMs, which is a big fucking deal. Because now, if we need an in-kind response, that can't happen, right? So the
Right.
initial thought
Makes
process
sense.
was, this is the Ruskies, because this is the Cold War era that's going on. But eventually, they determined that it wasn't. They don't know what it was. But it's a very famous incident. It's a very famous reference
Yeah,
that's
because
used.
just basically all the computers like turned off.
Yeah, and the
Right.
credibility of
Yeah,
everybody
I
involved
can.
essentially is assumed because they're all airmen,
Yep.
right?
Right.
But Malmstrom there in Great Falls, Montana, very much adopts that sort of, it embraces it, so to speak.
Mm.
But I was there for 8 years, and I'll tell you guys a true story. One night I was posted
All
on a
right.
weapon storage area. Me and my friend, we were both area supervisors, and we were doing some moving around, and part of that involves us staying stationary for a long portion of time. I know those ideas sound contrarian, but I'm not going to go into a bunch of different weird things I probably shouldn't be
I
talking about.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
And
understand.
we're sitting there watching what's going on happened. And all of a sudden, this really, really bright orange ball comes, like, literally just appears in the sky. It comes down really, really, really fast. Like, it blinks out and then is there. This thing literally follows a Humvee as it travels along the fence line. Okay. The movement ends. Okay. It blinks out, blinks on again, way up in the sky, and then literally zips the fuck out of there. And we watched this thing, I don't know, for maybe a good 45 seconds as it tracked the Humvee. Okay. The weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I can't even tell you, I spent a lot of my time out there at Malsham on mids. All of us would spend a lot of time out with our NVGs or whatever, just staring naked eye at the sky. Always really weird shit. And the view you have from Malsham is of the Lewis and Clark National Forest, okay? And there's a mountain range, as you can see, that's relatively close, like an hour drive outside of Great Falls, okay? One night, we climbed up on some conventional storage units, me and my buddies. And again, this is, like I said, it's an hour drive away, so consider this mountain range, okay? And we watched these lights moving around on the mountain, which is not that uncommon. There's always like search and rescue efforts and stuff like that go on. It could be a helicopter. Well, one of these lights that was moving around, we noticed that we could tell that it was illuminating the side of the mountain. And from what would be an hour's drive away with the naked eye, it looked like this side of the mountain was lit up like daylight. And then
it's like some close encounters, like in the movie.
Yes. Like the other side of the mountain, and like light was shining up from it, or
no, like something in the air was shining really, really bright light down on the mountain. But if it was a spotlight like from a helicopter, like I said, this mountain range is an hour's drive from like where we were. I should not be able to see a spotlight on the mountain like that, right?
I got you.
And if I could, it would not be an area as illuminated as what it was.
You guys aren't looking under nods. You're just looking under.
Just looking. We literally used to bring like camping chairs and would sit up on top of these old conventional storage units. Okay.
I'm just asking for the viewers.
Like, no. I'm just like painting the picture. If you, painting the picture. Yeah, painting the picture for you. We're just chilling up there, right? The fucking couple of monsters, right?
All right.
And it blinks out, and then on the other side of
roadies,
other side of the range, right, from one end to the other, lights up again on the opposite side of the mountain range, and this is a huge distance that it would have had to cover, unless if it was the same thing. So just seeing some really, really weird stuff out there by virtue of being stationed out in Montana.
This is in Montana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have. Oh, it's funny that
I got some weird stuff to tell you about in North Carolina, but you go ahead.
Well, it's funny you talk about like you're talking about this because I was actually on the phone earlier today with one of my buddies. He was in Ranger Bat for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which bat?
He was in Third Bat.
Oh.
And he's a friend of mine for so long before the Army, and just and I was chatting with him, and as it does, UFO conversation came up, and he had a really good point. I'm so glad that I talked to him today, because he was saying, okay, think about it from a tactical standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we went to another planet,
mm-hmm.
and we found out that the native species on that planet lived underwater. They were mer people.
Yeah.
Well, we would immediately go, even if we, now you have to assume if you have the capabilities to travel, intergalactically, you can have, it's as easy to live on land as it is under the water.
Yeah.
So for us, it'd be like, oh, well, we could go underwater or we could go on land. It doesn't matter. And he goes, well, wouldn't you build your base on land and set up your outposts on land? Because if the native species can't go there, then they'll never find you. And I was like, yeah, what are you getting at? And he goes, well, think about all these encounters you hear about where like an F-35 is chasing this orb or this cylinder-shaped object,
right,
and all of a sudden it darts under the water.
Yep.
It comes up from the water and it darts back down. And he was like, I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist. He was like, I'm just saying what I think would be tactically sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that is actually really that is an interesting point where, like, yeah, if there was life from another planet and it was trying to scope us out,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it would make sense that they would set up shop in the one place that we still don't have the technology to go to.
Yeah, think of being an older kid, maybe playing a game and running from a younger kid. You're going to go up someplace higher where they can't reach you at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those same experiences you're talking about with like jets and shit like that. Some of those Navy pilots and Air Force pilots that talk about it. I wonder too how much of that is like advanced tech that the U.S. government has, and they're testing it against.
And that was what I was going to ask you of, like, with some of the stuff that you saw, how much do you think is, just to play devil's advocate here, and to take off the tinfoil hat, so to speak, how much of the sightings that you see, that people, not you, but as people see, do you think is the potential for, oh shit, it's aliens, versus, oh, we have technology that's way better than they're leading us to believe? I mean, like, if you look at the F-22, it's a lot older than people think. Like, specs, like when it was drawn up. So it's like, if that's in service and that's the best we have right now,
yeah, it's the top fifth gen fighter. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so it's kind of like, all right, I mean, you got to assume that a lot of the spottings are actually just the government. Any government, maybe it's even, maybe it's China, maybe it's Russia. They're testing out their stuff and trying to try stuff out, or it's us testing stuff out.
So here's what I think. I think some of it is tech that maybe doesn't exist right on paper for everybody to know, and I think a large portion of it is people misjudging what they're seeing in the air as well. But I mean, I think that I'll say this. After World War II, there was a serious uptick in activity being reported and recorded. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is not an original thought. I'm just going to, paraphrase what a lot of other people who especially spend all this time, like ufologists, they like to say, I'm just going to parrot that.
Yeah.
The nuclear weapon essentially is the reason why the uptick in activity has happened. Okay. And one of the explanations that somebody analogized the situation is essentially as if we were a baby with a matchstick, okay, and we lit the match, right? And that, well, the baby is not responsible enough to hold a lit match, right? Because they could hurt themselves. And that essentially human beings are that baby with a lit match. And that is why, if there is some sort of interstellar or intergalactic species out there that's interacting with our planet, and maybe has been for a long time, that's why that uptick in activity happened. And there's also that conspiracy theory out there where wasn't it Eisenhower, I think, who basically got told, like, hey, from like some interstellar species, right? Stop fucking around with this shit or we'll end you, basically. And was told, like, that the nuclear weapon essentially was too much. We were endangering the galaxy seriously, or by having.
I have a, like.
Can I come in with another? Yeah. Okay, so if you go back to the Old Testament here, I have a thing. So the Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser, that would be the thing that I would tell everybody to look up. So this guy has a thing that he
It's an author.
You know what? Yeah, he's the author. It's a good documentary to go back. Go check it out, guys.
Okay.
From what you guys are talking about. But I just wanted to inject that. So there you go.
I was gonna say, the one thing, it sounds great with the analogy of the baby with the match. The one issue that I have with that whole, like, oh, we got nukes and now aliens are curious, is that if you're able to travel, and I'm playing devil's advocate again.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But if you're able to travel across the galaxy, why are you worried about a big bomb?
Yeah. And
you know what I mean? That'd be like,
it's true.
Like, if I was in the backyard and like the squirrels all of a sudden started playing with like M80s, I'd be like, well, that's concern. I'd be like, that's concerning, but like, I'm not like worried about like I'm not gonna go over to them and be like, no, no, no. I'd be like, well, oh well.
The answer
And
to
like,
that, and I don't have is it like the one that like is circulates throughout the community that discusses this is that a nuclear holocaust essentially would have ramifications outside of the planet, and that essentially that I don't know what you want to call it, nuclear wave that would leave the planet can cause damage somewhere else, essentially. And that if we want to be a part of some sort of like, and this is really woo woo, okay, so, but intergalactic federation of planets or species or whatever, that we have to stop this shit and start doing something else and stop being so destructive, essentially.
If we want Star Trek, we have to be,
if you want skin tight suits, okay, and robots and androids, and to just travel the universe and intergalactic peace forever, you have to lay down your weapons. Apparently,
as long as I'm not a red shirt, I'm okay.
Okay, I don't know enough about Star Trek to co-sign on that one, but sure.
If anyone, I'm not I'm a Star Wars guy, but I know enough. If you're a Star Trek fan, this red shirts are the guys who die in every episode. They're the stormtroopers.
Oh, okay, they can't hit anything.
It's like if you're wearing a red shirt, you're just like expendable crew.
You're fucked. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I don't know. There's a lot of really weird, interesting theories out there, and people like to tie in, the Bible too, and like not even the Bible, like some of these Gnostic texts and things that religious scholars like to say don't have the weight or the validity, like the Book of Enoch. People like to say, oh, the Anunnaki are the Nephilim, and that's where all these things exist, and that's what, if you look at Zoroastrianism, they have these really crazy theories about like wars in the sky, and like that's just aliens from 7,000 years ago or whatever battling for humanity. That would, to me, is like the same question you presented with like, why do you care about the bomb? Like, why are you fighting over cavemen? When you walk by an anthill, if you and I are walking on the sidewalk and we walk by an anthill, are you and I just gonna fucking get into a fight about who gets to kick the anthill over or who gets to squat and look at it? No, you're gonna walk right by it and not interact with it because there's no benefit out of it for you and I. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we could be the ashtray of the universe for all I know. I don't know. It's true though. At the end of the scene there in Men in Black, we're just
the marbles. Yeah. Well, and I do like, and I will say that's why I like the supernatural conspiracy theory stuff of like Bigfoot, the cave systems, because it's like, all right, it's
a little more tangible.
It's a little more tangible, and then also like with the cave system and stuff like that, where it's like there's enough where it's like, like I'll put it this way, I'm not worried about like going into the woods and a UFO beams me up. I am worried about going into the woods and all of a sudden I start hearing some hooty hoos, and I'm looking around like, not today.
Bro,
like I'll put it that way. So like that's why I do take like I definitely believe that there's something out there. Like the universe is way too vast for it just to be us. But at the same time, like I'm not worried about that because also the history buff in me is like, yeah, if aliens show up and they want to do some damage, we're screwed.
We're fucked.
Like,
if you can travel this far, you either really want to impart some amazing knowledge or you just want to kill us. Like that's to me, like that's the most simple theory. Let's Occam's razor this real fast. You're either here to teach us there's a better way, or you're here to fucking just turn us into a fucking a parking lot. You know what I mean? Like that's it. That's all there is. Like, so what am I gonna do? I'm one of these cave dudes out there, like from Sentinel Island, shooting a fucking bow and arrow at a Cessna. Like that's.
I mean, also too, like
fucking thong.
Like on that same train of thought is like, I think one of the best portrayals of like if there was or if there is a intergalactic federation, I think like we all love Star Wars, we all love Star Trek and all like Independence Day and all that stuff. I think the most accurate portrayal is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Sure.
Like
so long and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah, like realistically, if there's some federation out there and they're like, those monkeys with like fire, oh, we need to build a highway. It's in the way. Let's just like demolish it. Like, I mean, like they don't care. They wouldn't care about us yet. Yeah. Oh, they didn't respond. Oh well.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's. I I firmly believe that if aliens are out there and they were to be responsible for the demolition of our planet and the killing the human race, it's more likely they'd kill our planet to build a highway system than it would to be like Independence Day.
Right, because like you would think the idea too of coming here to collect resources, like I just don't, that doesn't seem that feasible, you know. But then again, we are assuming that space travel is like how we would envision space travel, this really long process. Because what if it is something, if you could figure that out, where it's instantaneous, where the travel time is non-existent essentially, because
like a jump, like a literal.
So it is nothing. But at that point, like, do you really need our fossil fuels? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe you do.
The only argument that holds up is like water.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, water. You just for being a
I feel like you want to. do you have something to add here? Because you're like,
Chris is just like watching.
Chris is just like laughing to himself and bobbing, and I'm like, all right, he either has something to add or he's just like, I'm over this.
Exactly.
No, it's not that, guys. It's just like you guys are vibing so hard. I'm like, I don't have anything to add.
I can't interject.
I can't.
Dude.
Like, you guys are.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'd re-enlist in a heartbeat if all of a sudden, if Space Force was like, we need Space Marines.
Yeah, dude.
Stop. Go back. What did you just say?
I'd re-enlist. In a heart. I'll put it this way. If Space Force came out and was like, hey, we've designed our uniforms and all our equipment on Halo ODST, and we're dropping in.
Oh my God, you're.
I'd be like, I'm in.
Why not?
Yeah, I'd be like, absolutely.
Yes.
Let's feet first into hell.
Yeah. Dude, I just like visions of StarCraft popping into my head now, dude.
I'd be like, yes.
Yeah.
Fuck
Space
you,
Marines.
bro.
Like, no questions asked.
You're our problem, dude.
No, he's like, you got to be way cooler for me to come back in, dog. Yeah.
No, I'm all for like when we're talking about serious stuff like politics and fixing the country, I'm like very grounded.
Yeah.
But like, if like I immediately become like, let's invade every planet in the world if we have every planet in the galaxy if we have the capabilities to do so.
Here you go. Yeah. Orbital drop shock troopers. Let's fucking go.
Like,
dude, so you talked about getting disappeared in the woods. Have you ever heard of or seen the movie Fire in the Sky?
Are we going 3 hours? Let's do this.
Have you seen Fire in the Sky?
On.
I have not. I was gonna say I'm ready to keep going or hop off, whatever you guys, whatever works for you guys.
I'm good right now, but
holy shit,
Travis,
all right, guys.
Travis Walton, his story. If you just get some time one day, look it up.
Walton.
They made a movie about it. It's called Fire in the Sky. But essentially, Travis Walton was a logger, and him and some friends essentially that were up in the mountains logging that day were driving down the road up in the mountains and essentially started getting followed by a really bright light, and it caused them to come off the road on the side of the mountain. And Travis got out and went to approach this light.
Travis Walton. Or
Travis Walton. 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 Anyway, and he was abducted. Okay. He disappeared. His friends, including his brother, were interrogated and investigated by the police for murdering Travis. They even were given polygraph to basically see if they were lying about what happened. And then several days later, Travis made a phone call from a payphone, I don't know how long away, like 20 miles away, naked at night in the rain, asking for help. And they had to drive out to him. And essentially he said that he was abducted. And Fire in the Sky the movie is terrifying, dude.
I'll have to watch it.
Okay, yeah.
It's stuck in my brain now. Chris, after my comment on the ODST, we can do it.
Stop.
Your comment on "you are the problem." I want to dig into that comment.
No, stop. I know what you're gonna do. All right, go ahead.
No, I want to dig into that comment.
All right. Ask me.
That's it. What made you react to, like, why was your reaction to, oh yeah, if we could be Space Marines? Why was your reaction, you are the problem?
Is it because of the word Marine?
No, it's because of the idea of being able to cross the third to fourth math problem. Okay, so this guy, what he's talking about is one of the people that disappeared in the national park.
Mm-hmm. Talking about Travis Walton still?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm looking him up. So Travis,
he's still alive,
Walton,
by the way.
And he disappeared, and then he reappeared, like 160 miles or something like that.
Yeah, it was way far away. It was after his brother and friends were being investigated for murder already, and had taken a polygraph. Yeah, it passed the polygraph, by the way.
Yeah, and it was super
how much weight
weird.
You put into the polygraph.
Yeah, so he disappeared and reappeared as the same person, which is what I'm reading on Wiki. By the way, guys, I'm reading Wikipedia right now. I'm catching up on this.
I'm a Wikipedia apologist, man.
Yeah, I'm reading it up right now. Wikipedia. I'm reading. So he disappeared 1975, reappeared. Help me, Brandon. Reappeared. I'm reading the article. Reappeared 19. Help me, Brandon.
I don't know what year. I just know he reappeared, essentially.
He reappeared.
You know what you guys need? You guys need a Jamie.
We do, dude. So normally, when Zach is here, Zach Jamie's really well.
Hold on. You put me on.
Yeah.
I asked about what you have against Space Marines.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything against Space Marines except that it's not a real branch. But
yeah, well, yes,
not yet.
We can all agree on that. Not yet. And I'll be the first enlisted there.
Is Space Force a dorky ass name, or is that cool?
1978. Nailed it, guys! I finally found it.
Because Space Force just sounds dorky.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like what else would you call it? But it's also just like so obvious it's stupid.
Why wouldn't you guys call it Space Rangers?
I mean, it's a good opportunity.
That would cheapen the term Rangers.
I would say Rangers would get all super butthurt about it.
Wouldn't you guys call it Rangers?
I think that here's my take on why I would say why they probably had to choose Space Force. Because let's be honest, all of the cool names have been taken by movies and video games.
I guess that's true. You know what I mean? Like what else would you call them? Yeah.
Like you can't be like you can't call them any of the cool names. Yeah. Like they're all taken.
It's lame too that like Space Force members are called Guardians. Like, why not? I don't know. Spacemen. Astronauts.
I didn't know that was like instead of like a soldier, Marine,
they're called Guardians. Yeah. Which is really dumb. That's as bad as the Redskins changing their name to the fucking Commanders. Like that's
Guardians.
It is.
Like it should be cool.
It should be, but cool. Like Guardians sucks. You know what I mean? Like, but
it'd be cool. It'd be cool if like they actually had Space Marines.
Yes.
If you're a dude in in a giant suit,
Master
and
Chief.
they're like, oh, like if you were dressed up like Master Chief and like, oh, that's a Guardian, I'd be like, yeah, it is. Yes, that is a Guardian.
But instead, it's the nerdy kid doing satellite comms. You know what I mean? Like, and dude,
like you're not a Guardian.
They're like flirting with the idea, and I don't even know. I could be wrong. This could be enacted, but that there's no
100%. I think that every single person of the United States Department of Defense wished that Master Chief was their guardian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everything you guys are saying. If they could grab that guy and be like, "That's our guy."
Just clone Mattis.
This is our Captain America.
Just clone Mattis.
That is that is Captain America.
Yeah.
If you could grab that guy for Gen Z, boom, we
Boom.
wouldn't have a problem.
You know, I mean, if we're going to talk about video games, my biggest disappointment that the military never put in.
What?
I was recently replaying the Gears of War games, and I'm sorry, but why don't we have chainsaws,
dude?
We need bayonets.
Just make,
why don't we have chainsaw bayonets on our guns?
Chainsaw bayonets.
I was gonna say, dude, just make like the 203 through hot swappable with the fucking chainsaw.
Just slap that on
the rail system. Just go.
Just, I mean, imagine the fright you'd have. All of a sudden, just fix bayonets, and instead of you hear people yelling, you just hear vroom, 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 vroom.
Dude, trench warfare.
I give up immediately.
Dude, but the Ukrainians could learn from this with all the trenches they've built over there, dude. Shotguns.
You heard it. You heard it here first.
Yeah, shotguns.
You heard it here first. Yeah. Then forget drone warfare. The next advancement in trench warfare is going to be chainsaws on shotguns.
Dude, that is like the perfect trench warfare weapon right there. That really is, dude. That like CQB, boom, boom. I
you can take the door down with it too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Barbed wire gone.
Yep. You need to cut some beams to like collapse some of these trenches that they've kind of made into CQs and shit like that. Boom, collapse.
It's the ultimate problem solver.
It is. Dude, what? We need to have a business conversation when this is over, George. What was the thing that you wanted to wrap the podcast up with? And we'll close out.
Oh, yeah. So I quoted it once. The Hill Worth Dying On.
Mm-hmm.
But there was the last page. It was like pretty inspiring, and
okay.
and I'll just read it here. It's just 2 paragraphs basically. Because we talked about Chris asked, how does someone get involved in politics?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get involved? How do you better your community? How do you better your state? How do you better your country?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this resonates. Do not lose hope. Do not fear an uncertain future. It is easy to believe that we are incapable of mustering the courage required to accomplish great deeds. However, just as a single snowflake can combine with others to become a roaring avalanche, a single act of courage can inspire a sweeping movement. Most importantly, everything we do in this life is to better the lives of those after us. While none of us beg for a challenging life, I do not cringe at the struggles that our nation currently faces. Rather, I am driven by the hope that my children will not be burdened by the current scourge. With that, I seek a future bristling with freedom, one that unites our nation under the banner of liberty and casts out those who would oppress us. America has no place for the cowardly, nor does she welcome tyrants. Rather, she is what she was always meant to be, a land of the free and a home of the brave.
Amen.
And I was like, that's everything.
It is.
Say again, who said that?
It's from
that was Hill Worth Dying On.
Last page.
No, the author. Who said
Timothy Edwards.
Timothy Edwards. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, guys, George, I appreciate you reading that, man. I think it was a great way to finish because the conversation we've had tonight, essentially, I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff. And this is discourse 100% is how we're going to get out of this. We all have to have these conversations. And, circling back to what we said at the beginning of this podcast is podcasting in general. This is, I don't think I'm going to be, the next Joe Rogan. That's a flash or not. That's, 1,000,000 to 1 chance, but whoever listens, the small number of people that listen and just us having this conversation is exactly what we need. All of us having these talks and understanding, we all are Americans. We need to discuss our obligations. We need to discuss what it actually means to be a citizen. And I think we did a really good job covering that stuff in the podcast. And George, it would be awesome to have you back on again sometime soon.
I'd love to.
This was a fun conversation too.
No, it was fun. It bounced around, and just the last thing, and with that whole mentality is that, when you look at the founding fathers, my favorite is Thomas Paine, and he wrote Common Sense. He wrote it anonymously. He donated the proceeds to the war effort. And then when he died, 6 people attended his funeral. And he was kind of lost for history for a bit, and then he came back, and people now know his name.
What is it that he said, brother? Say
He
the thing.
called out bullshit for bullshit's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And
say the thing. Say the thing.
Which
thing?
one?
The thing that Thomas Paine said at his funeral. The one thing.
At his funeral?
I don't know. If you know, you should say it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know it.
Thomas Paine said, if I had but one country to die for, right?
No, that was
Nathaniel Hale, right?
That was Nathaniel Hale.
Oh, I'm wrong. Call me out, guys.
I did.
Yeah.
It's okay. We got you, dog.
But like, you know, I look at the founding fathers, and like they were just average dudes chatting by.
Well, bro, we're
like,
older,
chatting at the
we're
bar.
older than a lot of them now. I'm 37.
And they started their movement by just sitting down at a bar or sitting down at a living room table.
Exactly.
And this is exactly what we're doing here. We're sitting down,
dude.
we're bullshitting here and there, but we're also talking about serious stuff.
We
and
are.
I think like as long as enough of us are actually paying attention and talking about what needs to be talked about, and then that leads to action.
Yeah.
I think we're all right.
Yes.
So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, whenever you guys have an open spot, I'm happy to come back on.
Yeah, dude, I would love you to come back on as well. I know Zach would like talking to you too. And last episode, I said his wife just had their crib midget, so he's a little preoccupied right now, which is why I appreciate Chris filling in for him. So, but Chris, man, if you have any closing remarks, bro, before we shut this thing down?
No, I won't embarrass you guys anymore.
Oh, you're not an embarrassment. All right, man. Well, as always, appreciate you guys for listening. Go check out Common Freaking Sense podcast. Definitely check out A Hill Worth Dying On, Timothy Edwards. You can find it online. Probably order it off Amazon, I think. And as always, thanks for listening to I Came With Fire podcast. And yeah, we'll wrap it up. Good night, guys.
Thanks for having me. God
100%.
bless you guys. God bless America.
Hell yeah. God bless America. God bless you.